and this ongoing illegal occupation and so forth, at some point we have to engage in the concept of boycott, divestment, sanctions. I think the UK government should be engaging this. I think we should be taking a full audit of all our military, economic, financial, academic and cultural connections and relationships with Israel. So the cultural boycott, how that works is that if it's an individual and we're not getting any funding or connection with the Israeli government or Israeli funding, then of course you can work with somebody. The difference is if there's any funding or any government involvement, that you avoid it, assuming the politics are aligned.
Farhan Nabulsi, thank you very much for joining me on Hard Talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was Hard Talk. I'm Saroja Coelho. You're listening to CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and on YouTube. Thanks so much for joining us this morning, and we're going to see what the day is going to bring. We're on air till 8:37 AM, and if you see anything with issues in the commute this morning, not as foggy as yesterday, and you can let us know. Abby just said in my ear, and I didn't hear you, Abby. 2 degrees is our temperature. Thanks, Abby. We were at 3 yesterday morning to start our day, so today we begin with 2 degrees. But as I was just alluding to, less fog out there, so hopefully you'll have a good, clear morning, especially if you're commuting. Let's say good morning to Corey Funk, who is directing the show and covers the commute. Let's say good morning to Abby Adeyemi, who is behind the controls, our technical producer, and Abby will cover the weather on air. And a big high five to Kevin Ipatebo, who is there. I'm trying to do it virtually on YouTube. Well, that worked kind of, Kev. Kevin's our YouTube producer, saying good morning online today. All right, let's go to Heather Wells now, who is also, of course, on our live team. She's in our news center and has our headlines today. Hi there, Heather.
Hi. Well, advocates for child victims and witnesses say our justice system has a long way to go to make it fair and supportive for children. This week, charges against a Manitoba priest were stayed. Arul Savari was accused of sexually assaulting a now 9-year-old girl in Little Grand Rapids First Nation last year. Christy Dekowitz at the Toba Center for Children and Youth says how and where children give court testimony are long-standing issues. We'll hear more from her coming up. And you win some, you lose some. Last night, Winnipeg Blue Bombers running back Brady Oliveira was winning some. He was named both the league's top Canadian and the CFL's most outstanding player. In Tampa Bay, the Winnipeg Jets lost their second game of the season, falling 4-1 to the Lightning. We'll hear more about both those stories coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
We knew that the Jets were going to have to take some losses, of course, so it's just one. Let's talk about the Bombers. We're going to hear more about Brady Oliveira. We're going to hear more also about Adam Bighill, who was honored also at the CFL Awards last night, and from fans throughout the morning. CBC's Gavin Axelrod is live in Vancouver to cover the Grey Cup, and so we're going to hear more from him later. He'll have a live report for us after 8. That and much more coming up, so stay with us. Right now, though, let's begin the day with World Report. So it's 1 minute now to 6.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger sitting in for Tom Power. When Fat Mike, lead singer of the punk band NoFX, said this was their final tour, he really meant it. He joins me to chat about ending the band's 40-year run and why he was worried about making it through the last show.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Workers at Canada Post are on strike. They walked off the job just after midnight Eastern Time. The union, which represents 55,000 workers, says the action comes as a last resort. The CBC's Lindsay Duncombe has the latest.
I say contract, you say no! Contract! No!
The pickets went up as soon as the deadline passed. Workers at the postal sorting facility near Vancouver's airport left the busy night shift. Anju Parmar is the local president of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers.
This is not what we wanted, but we had no choice left.
Solidarity!
Talks between Canada Post and the union had been going on for more than a year. Wages are a big sticking point. Canada Post offered an 11.5% increase over 4 years. The union wants close to double that, 22%.
Because I guess both parties were far apart, and the demands we put on from day one, they were never resolved.
In a statement, Canada Post outlined what the strike will mean. No mail and no parcels delivered, some post offices closed. That's especially tough for businesses ahead of the holiday season. Erin Mullally sells women's clothing at Gatley Lifestyle Store in Vancouver.
We ship all of our online orders with Canada Post, and we work with a lot of local Canadian makers and designers. They send their products to us via Canada Post, so it would be delays, again, for the busiest season for us, holiday.
Shortly before the strike, the federal labor minister said Ottawa was sending additional resources to the bargaining table, saying Canadians need them to reach an agreement. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Healthcare, the housing crisis, affordability, and coastal protection, all contentious topics in Nova Scotia's provincial election. Last night, the leaders of the three main parties discussed their plans to address those issues in a televised debate in Halifax. Kayla Hounsell has the details.
We are the only party that can make it happen in this province.
One of the most heated exchanges of the CBC leaders' debate came when Progressive Conservative leader Tim Houston raised the federal government's carbon tax. Houston is seeking a second term.
The NDP are beholden to Jagmeet Singh in Ottawa. The Liberals are beholden to Justin Trudeau in Ottawa. I am only beholden to Nova Scotians.
Houston has accused Nova Scotia Liberal leader Zach Churchill of siding with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, who has become increasingly unpopular among Canadians.
Mr. Houston has had signs on his political signs for 2 years saying vote against the carbon tax. Guess what? The carbon tax is still here.
Churchill says he would replace the carbon tax with a cap-and-trade system, similar to the one in Quebec. NDP leader Claudia Chender hasn't taken a firm position on how carbon should be priced.
It's somewhat ironic that you are saying that you are the voice of action, Tim, when all you do is blame Ottawa for the challenges that people are facing today in Nova Scotia.
Nearly 3 weeks into the campaign, the parties have made a range of promises, including cutting taxes, attracting more healthcare workers, and building more affordable housing, all as the province deals with record-breaking population growth. At dissolution, the PCs had 34 seats, the Liberals held 14, the NDP had 6, and there was 1 independent. Nova Scotians go to the polls November 26th. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
CBC News has new information about a controversial case connected to a high-profile protest against pandemic restrictions. 2 men were arrested with an arsenal of firearms at the border blockade in Coutts, Alberta. Now our colleagues at the Fifth Estate have obtained video evidence that sheds light on their motivations. Stephen D'Souza has the details.
When the elites win, we all lose, and we'll all be in a concentration camp then.
Tony Olenek looks relaxed, sitting in the white and gray police interview room in Alberta in February 2022. He was arrested the night before at the Coutts blockade, accused along with 3 others of conspiring to murder RCMP officers.
I'm probably too deep down the rabbit hole, but...
Chris Carbert was also charged. The Fifth Estate obtained video of their police interviews. It shows just how deep into conspiracies the men were.
It scares me, right? Just from seeing all these elites doing what they're doing.
The men had an arsenal of weapons, ammunition, and body armor. Olenek tells officers about his doomsday scenario.
The government then will call the Insurrection Act. So then what happens is the UN comes, which is Chinese troops. And there is an imminent invasion of Chinese troops on Canadian and American soil.
But in August, a jury found Carbert and Olenek not guilty of conspiracy to kill police officers, only guilty of weapons possession and mischief. The jury didn't believe the men had a plan to attack the police. University of Alberta criminologist Temitope Oriola says the case shows that extremism needs to be taken more seriously in Canada.
This was treated as a standard series of street-level crime. Because of that, they've gotten away fairly lightly, in my opinion.
Carbert and Olenek were sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. The Crown and defense are both appealing. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Toronto.
Conspiracy in Coutts airs tonight on the Fifth Estate at 9 p.m. on CBC and CBC Gem, or you can watch it on the Fifth Estate's YouTube channel. Donald Trump gave his first formal speech last night since being re-elected as U.S. president last week.
Please welcome the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Thank you.
Actor Sylvester Stallone there introducing Trump at a gala event in Florida for the Republican Party faithful. Trump used the occasion to promote his recent controversial pick for the role of health secretary. Steve Futterman reports.
Donald Trump's controversial nominations continue.
Today I nominated him for, I guess, if you like health and if you like people that live a long time, it's the most important position, RFK Jr. Bobby?
Trump's latest out-of-the-box nomination, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. Kennedy has been a vocal vaccine skeptic who has promoted conspiracy theories.
There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective.
Among Kennedy's other positions, a belief that COVID targets certain groups of people. But by far the nomination receiving the most blowback is Trump's choice of Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General. Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, has been among the most vocal in attacking Gaetz.
Well, it must be the worst nomination for a cabinet position in American history.
Gaetz has been under investigation by the House for allegations that he was involved in sex trafficking and that he had a sexual relationship with a minor. Plus, he is very unpopular, even with Republicans. It would be hard to get him confirmed by the Senate. But there is a way to bypass the Senate with what's called a recess appointment. Trump has said he wants the new Republican majority in the Senate to allow this process, essentially taking away the Senate's traditional role in approving cabinet positions. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
The New Zealand Parliament was suspended today after a noisy protest from Maori lawmakers. Peter Hatfield has more.
It started with the lone protest of New Zealand's youngest parliamentarian, an Indigenous Maori woman named Hannah Rohiti Maipi Clark, after she was asked whether her party supported a bill to revise a colonial-era treaty. Her performance of a traditional Maori song and dance called the haka soon had other Maori politicians joining in. Within a minute, they were on the floor of the House of Representatives, taunting government politicians who are trying to push the bill through. It seeks to amend an 1840 treaty that ended years of wars and disputes between Indigenous Maori and European settlers. The government says the treaty gives unfair advantages to Maori people. Critics say it takes away Maori rights. The disruption inevitably brought this response from the Speaker.
The House is suspended until the ringing of the bells.
A suspension of Parliament. But tensions are likely to continue when the government again tries to push the bill through. Peter Hadfield for CBC News, Sydney.
And finally, last week we told you all about Beyoncé and the Grammys. This week it's all about the Latin Grammys.
Los muchachos en el ring del barrio nunca se doblan. Se mantienen en su tinta con un pon de cariño.
Dominican won Luis Guerra, the big winner last night at the awards. This song, Mambo 23, got Record of the Year. But Guerra also won Album of the Year, also for Best Merengue Bachata Album, all of it making him a 27-time Latin Grammy winner. And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio. We are live downtown, and it is 3 degrees in the city this morning. Well, I just posted on my Facebook page that today is one of those awesome days where I get to be biased for once in my life. Because who thought I was cheering for Toronto in the Grey Cup, right? I got my Bomber Blue on today, and this morning we're going to be hearing about the Bombers that won awards last night. More about it. You probably might have heard some of that on World Report just now. So stay tuned. We'll give you some of the speeches and some of the excitement from Vancouver. Also this hour on the program, a resource center in East Kildonan and Winnipeg is hoping to raise some money so they can pay it forward. They are putting on a feasts are hoping for 250 people. So we're going to hear more about the Community Roots Resource Center. Plus, this hour ahead, what is the latest from COP29 in Baku right now? We're going to get an update on the UN climate talks, especially in light of Donald Trump, the president-elect, starting to announce his cabinet this week. So a lot of concern about climate with that election in the States, of course. So we're going to get some analysis just before 7 o'clock. Right now, though, it is 6:11 and Heather Wells joins us with our headlines. Hi, Heather.
Hi there. Well, the city was caught off guard by the province announcing 12 new officers in Winnipeg for community policing. The chair of the police board, Councillor Marcus Chambers, is disappointed the city wasn't consulted. Chambers says what the city really needs is more money to cover policing. Some Winnipeggers are calling on the city to do more to protect people on the roads. 14 pedestrians and 2 cyclists have died on the roads of Winnipeg so far this year. It is, according to MPI, the deadliest year since at least 2018. I'll be back with more Manitoba news coming up at 6:30.
All right, thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
We're going to ask the mayor about that, actually. Now, you know, we have a monthly interview with Mayor Scott Gillingham. That is coming up today. We will cover a number of topics, but honestly, sometimes I know we cover many topics. This one's big, so we're going to spend a lot of time talking to the mayor this morning about what is happening with safety on our city streets. So stay tuned for that. Scott Gillingham here in the next hour. Right now it is 6:12 a.m. and let's get caught up on traffic and weather. But before we do that, Abby Adeyemi.
Good morning.
I gotta say,
bring it on.
People on YouTube are gonna see my triple bracelets this morning. I'm channeling my Taylor Swift. They can see yours. So we're kind of channeling that Swiftie energy because Abby gave me friendship bracelets today. Thank you, buddy.
You're welcome.
I love that. Are you also giving me tickets to one of the shows coming up, or?
Well, we'll think about that. I'll think about it.
All right, let's get into the weather forecast today.
Well, we're looking at from north to south of the province. We're going to see cloudy conditions with light snow in the north, sunny skies down south with breezy conditions felt this afternoon in Brandon and mainly sunny skies in the city of Winnipeg here. Temperatures will be mild across the board, I will tell you for sure. Right now, 2 degrees in the city. We are seeing some misty conditions out there and that lingering fog from yesterday in some areas. However, for today, it's going to be a beautiful one. I tell you, expect sunny skies. We'll get plenty of sunshine in the forecast with light winds. So I'd advise you grab your shades. We do warm up to a high of 8 today, making it a wonderful one and a wonderful morning as we get into the day. The winds will shift though, southerly, and then it's going to be more like a calm one. Across board, northern areas, we're seeing flurries and freezing drizzle later in the day. Thompson and Churchill hovering near 5 degrees at this time. And down south, we're seeing -2 in Brandon. And then for Dauphin, Gimli, Steinbach, and Morris, hovering close to 4 degrees at this time. Plenty of sunshine also in the forecast. Morris will be getting to a high of 8. So it's a cool start across board with sunshine for most of the areas. But clouds will definitely be building sometime in the afternoon and expect rain in some areas also. Generally, we're looking at temperatures between 0 and 8 degrees at this time.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
So as Abby said, grab the shades for today. Now for tomorrow, he already kind of skipped ahead there. We could see wet showers. That's important because Santa's coming to town.
Sure is. Yeah. So tomorrow, actually, you're going to see some road closures as early as 11 a.m. And particularly that's going to be the southbound lanes of Maine between Portage and York. There's going to be a number of closures. I'll keep you abreast of those. I won't totally bore you with all of them because there is actually a big fulsome article on our website.
Good. Let's point people there.
Yes, this morning. So if you just search CBC Santa Claus Parade, that's what worked for me. Manitoba or Winnipeg. And then you can actually get the full details. There's even a map and everything on there, what's going to be closed at when. But do know that you're probably, the biggest thing is, southbound Maine. And then, of course, Portage Avenue is going to be where a lot of the action is going to be happening tomorrow as well.
How about otherwise in traffic this morning, Corey Funk?
Pretty quiet. If you do see anything else going on out there, though, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
Well, let's begin in East Kildonan, talking about the Community Roots Resource Center, because they're doing some special work. They're located on inside Jubilee Mennonite Church, but this weekend they're hosting a craft sale. What they're trying to do is raise money for their annual Christmas dinner. That dinner feeds 250 people, and the kids who show up get photos with Santa, and they also get gift cards. So Executive Director Pam Jansen is here early. The early guest award goes to Pam, and she's in studio to talk about it. Hi.
Good morning. Thanks for having me here this morning.
Thanks for being with us. I love that you wore your shirt too, your Community Roots shirt.
Well, I could have worn my bomber jersey like you too. It's an exciting weekend.
Let me ask you what motivates you to do the work. Like when you think about your community and working with people in this way, and tell me a little bit about that.
I grew up in North Kildonan. And when I was a single mom, I lived right behind our Manitoba housing site. And I always think I would have loved to have that connection with other moms, knowing that there was a food bank there, things like that, and just, connect with other people. Sometimes it's a little tough when you have lots of jobs going on and things like that. And it's nice because the school that my kids went to, we have a really close relationship with Donwood School as well. So yeah, it's just nice to kind of work in that area that I still live in North Kildonan. So yeah.
I grew up in North Kildonan too. I went to Donwood School.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
cool.
I did. It's interesting though, you're reflecting on sort of back in the day and your experience and saying it would have been nice to have. Mm-hmm. So those resources weren't necessarily plentiful for you in that neighborhood back in the day.
You know what? I don't think they were. Maybe it's just that, and that's why I love the job that I have, because it's all about creating that connection with community, learning what the community needs. There's a lot of, we see a lot of newcomers coming in. So it's changing a lot. The community's changing. So it's just nice to try to connect with the community, see what the community needs. Mm-hmm. And, I used to do a little bit of work on the side, and it's like even 5 years ago, it's changed a lot. So
you said a lot of newcomers coming in. What are some of the other demographics you're noticing? Like, would you have lots of young families, and what countries are people coming from?
We have the Ukraine, lots from Sudan, different places in Africa. We have a lot of Indigenous families as well, a lot of single moms. And everyone has their own challenges, right? There's like mental health, there's addiction. And we see it like even with the youth and things like that as well. So there's a lot of work to do, but I think we're on the right step, just moving forward and trying to really, get the community together and figure out what their needs are as well.
You've got a nice list of things going on. I think you've got a girls' club, cooking classes. Tell me more about some of the things you're offering.
Mm-hmm. We have something offered every day of the week. So we do have a girls' club that is from 9 and up. And we're also looking to target older youth as well, older girls. And then we also have a crock pot cooking class for women. So, I love my crock pot. It saves my butt a few times, right?
Yeah.
You can make some healthy meals in there, fast meals, and especially for women that have like lots of kids or jobs or running around. And
zero time.
And you can make some really delicious meals that are very economical as well and healthy, which is important. We just started a boys' club, which was very exciting. The boys were very excited for that because they have to have that if the girls have the girls' club. And then we also have just a drop-in center where we offer homework help. And just do some crafts, board games, and just connect. We have about 2 staff on for that, and just the kids just come have a snack.
How much are people talking to you? I was just mentioning snack and crock pot. I'm thinking about the cost of food. How much are people talking to you, families, about what that's like for them and what the other struggles are like?
That is a big struggle. With food, we do have an emergency food pantry that's available, 5 days a week, or sometimes 6, depending. And it is a lot. We've seen our numbers increase, so that is one thing that we are always looking for donations for food. So I know we do I teach yoga as well, so we do chair yoga on Fridays, and that's just. It's free for the community or whatever, but if you can afford to bring a tin for the bin or something like that, then we collect food that way as well.
Well, let's talk. Let's get back to the reason that you're here this morning. So you have this craft sale coming up.
Right.
It's a fundraiser for your holiday dinner, as I mentioned.
Right.
How much does it cost to host your holiday dinner?
I want to say close to 5,000.
Okay. So is that the goal for the craft sale this weekend?
It won't be that won't make it for no.
What kind of crafts you make
exactly. No, it's so how we raise our money for that is the crafters, they rent the tables.
Got it.
So, a table rental is $25, so that money from the table rental goes directly towards
helping out with
that. And then we also have like gift baskets that we, people can try to win prizes for that. So, that's just one of our fundraising things for that. So we do get a lot of donations from churches, from private people, like private businesses and things like that as well.
What kind of crafts are going to be showcased then? What kinds of things are you going to have this weekend?
We have some beautiful pottery, some jewelry, of course, the macrame and the knitting stuff. Some cross-stitching supplies. Some kids are going to be there selling their slime, which is exciting because apparently slime is a big thing these days, right? So there's about 18 different vendors there today.
If people can't make it, I'll mention the details as well, by the way. I know it starts at 10 o'clock till 3. But if people can't make it out, where should they go to find out more about your center and the resources that, the things you're working on?
We do have a webpage, it's Community Roots Resource Center. One of the other fundraisers that we're just pitching actually this weekend is called the Giving Tree as well. So we're just having, if people wanted to support but can't make it to the craft sale, we have if you wanted to donate $20, that can provide healthy snacks for our boys and girls clubs. We also have a women's drop-in center so women can connect and just talk about parenting or stressors that they're having with their kids. So it's called Take a Break. So that's another thing. We always offer some food, some coffee, tea, things like that. We're also just looking for, diapers, diaper cream, families that, come like little welcome packages, cleaning packages, pantry stuff for the pantry, things like that. So we're any kind of donation like monetary or food or mitts and hats and things like that for the community. There's always a need for that as well.
Thank you very much for coming in and highlighting what you're doing out in NK, I say, but EK, right?
Yeah.
And we'll mention more about your website if people can help out with all the various programs and things. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Yes, go Bombers, go.
Yeah, right. It's nice to start with something positive, isn't it? So Pam Jansen doing a lot of positive work as the executive director of the Community Roots Resource Center in East Kildonan. Their craft sale fundraising event, by the way, is Saturday. It's 10. It goes till 3. They're also looking for those donations to further support community. So all the contact information and details are on this website, Community Roots Winnipeg, and that's WPG, communityrootswpg.ca. The address, in case you're curious, is 365. That's 365 Edelweiss Crescent. So 365 Edelweiss.
There's more to community than location. It's about the spaces we share, physically and digitally, the points of view that divide or unite us. Gen Z, let's get to know each other. CBC's Communities in Focus is coming to RRC Polytech's Notre Dame campus November 18th to 29th. Live radio, live streaming, and your point of view. Let's talk. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
Time right now is 6:23 a.m. and in Winnipeg today, a high of 8 degrees. As Abby said, it's going to be nice and sunny. Increasing cloud tonight, low 2, and then tomorrow cloudy. Rain beginning around noon, so bring an umbrella for the Santa Claus parade, won't you? And a high of 7 degrees. Speaking of which, as Corey mentioned, go to our website for details on closures because of the parade at cbc.ca/Manitoba. In the other centers, by the way, Brandon, in the city of Brandon, sunny today as well. Your high is going to be 5 degrees. And in Thompson today, you are expecting snow. So 2 to 4 centimeters of snow is expected in Thompson, and your daytime high is going to be -2. Still ahead in this hour of Information Radio, we're going to hear more in the news about the awards, more than one, multiple, that Brady Oliveira picked up at the CFL Awards last night. And we also later are going to be hearing from Adam Bighill, who was also honored at the CFL Awards in Vancouver as well. Well, let's talk about that football game. As I mentioned, it's going to be hard to not show our bias all morning. I'm wearing a Bomber jersey. We're hearing Bomber fans cheering, and everyone is ready to go. On Sunday, gathering around TVs and in stadiums maybe all across the country to watch the Bomber games, where they're going to be showing the Bomber games on big screens. So Sunday's Grey Cup marks the end of another season in the CFL. For some, this game between the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the Toronto Argonauts is going to be the first CFL game that they'll watch all season. Some people check out and just watch the Grey Cup. Others might just tune in for the halftime show. The Jonas Brothers are playing the half. Wherever you fall on the spectrum, let's talk about it. Vicky Hall's freelance journalist and CFL Hall of Famer, a media pundit, and she joins us now from Calgary. Good morning.
Good morning, Marcy.
I've been to lots of Grey Cups. We've got our reporter out in Vancouver later that's going to tell us all about it. I know you've been as well. Can you describe the vibe of a Grey Cup weekend in this country?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of people in Winnipeg would know it. But, I've had the pleasure of covering, lots of Stanley Cup finals, and I've been at lots of Olympics. But actually, the party at the Grey Cup, to me, is the party. I mean, it's the one chance for people across Canada to get together. It doesn't really matter where you're from. You can wear your jersey. People trash talk each other, but it's all in fun. So it's a huge party. And in Vancouver, like with the stadium right downtown there and with the waterfront, it just seems to kind of get the whole place is electric and into it and in party central. So, yeah, I think it's amazing. And, that zip line in Vancouver, too, people are like cruising through downtown Vancouver on zip line. So, hats off to them for trying something creative.
What I've always really loved about it is it feels very community. That surprised me back in the day when I was assigned to go cover my first Grey Cup for CBC. It was like this strange sort of like it's a countrywide event, but yet it felt almost small town. It's hard to explain that. Let's talk game.
It totally is.
Right? Let's talk game. Yeah. Winnipeg versus Toronto, obviously, in Vancouver. So the former, obviously, Toronto is the underdog. We're the favorite going in with our fifth straight appearance, but Bombers didn't start the season great. So, and we have a settle to score with Toronto. So I'm wondering what you're thinking we're going to see in Sunday's game.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Bombers are like the team of the decade, or like this era, really, for sure. Those two losses the last 2 years, I think, I've been surprised each time. So this is the chance for Winnipeg to really cement its status. Like this is, we look at Edmonton as the dominant team in the late 70s and the 80s, and Montreal in the early 2000s. And so this is Winnipeg's chance to really cement that legacy. And the Bombers are such a good team. They've also, they've been there. I mean, to hear the guys talk this week, like the curfew, I think, was 11 last night. It's 10 tonight and tomorrow. They're locked in, and they've been there before. And Zach Collaros looks more comfortable in the pocket there, on with all these people coming at him. He looks more comfortable than most of us do just on our daily lives. That's his office. So I think, this is a chance to see Winnipeg and to see if they can live up to all the promise and just the quality of team that they are.
He does have some pretty calm vibes in the pocket. I love how you frame that. That's awesome.
Yeah, totally.
Nobody wants to win because the other team is injured, but the reality is, or have the game be affected by it. But Toronto could be affected by injuries. So for those that haven't been paying attention, let's talk a bit about Toronto and what they have to bring.
Yeah, absolutely. So for, don't be embarrassed if you haven't been following it at all. It's totally fine. But yes, Toronto's quarterback, Chad Kelly, he broke his leg badly in the Eastern final. So that means that there's a journeyman named Nick Arbuckle who's kind of bounced around the league, never really stuck anywhere. He's suddenly their starting quarterback. And, he says that in high school, he came off the bench. He was the backup, and he came in the championship game, and he won the championship for his high school. But this is a bit different of a stage, but it's his chance to write his name into the history books. But the thing is with Toronto's got an outstanding defense. They sack the quarterback. They might even make Zach's life difficult. That's their goal for sure. And on special teams, Janarian Grant is just an amazing kick returner. He returned one for a touchdown in the Eastern Finals. So Winnipeg has a lot of things to keep track of. Just because the starting quarterback is injured does not mean that, this is not a given by any stretch.
Thanks very much for teeing it up from your perspective for us this morning, Vicki, and enjoy the game.
Yeah, good luck.
That's Vicki Hall, freelance journalist and CFL and Hall of Fame CFL pundit. We reached her this morning in Calgary, which, of course, Calgary is going to be hosting a Grey Cup coming up. So are we next year in Winnipeg. We have coming up here on CBC Winnipeg our business news. So Christley Ramlichan is going to join us after 6:30 to talk about the big labor news in this country. Of course, Canada Post workers are on strike. So we've been hearing about that, and the news will continue to. But Christley is going to obviously tee up the economic impacts at this hour. This hour is 6:30. It's time for your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's 2 degrees. It's going to be a beautiful Friday. Lots of sunshine this afternoon, just a bit of a south breeze, and a high of 8. That's 10 degrees warmer than seasonal. Workers at Canada Post are on strike, meaning Canadians should expect delays in deliveries. Anju Parmar heads the Vancouver local of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers.
This is not what we wanted, but we had no choice left. I think members were well aware from last year, because these negotiations were going on for over a year now. So we were prepared for the picket lines if we had to.
Wages are a major issue. The union wants a 22% raise over 4 years. Canada Post is offering 11.5. The Crown Corporation says it has lost $3 billion over the last 5 years, $500 million last year alone. You can hear more about this Canada Post strike coming up on World Report at 7. Advocates for child victims and witnesses say our justice system has a long way to go to make it fair and supportive for children. This week, charges against a Manitoba priest were stayed. Arul Savari was accused of sexually assaulting a now 9-year-old girl in Little Grand Rapids First Nation last year. Christy Dukowitz is CEO at Toba Center for Children and Youth. She says she can't comment on this case specifically, but she says how and where children give their court testimony are both long-standing issues.
Most people in society, want to see offenders held accountable if and when crimes have been committed against children. And right now, the pathway to getting there is extraordinarily challenging for children. We have a hard time having kids come forward in the first place.
Dukowitz says the Toba Center hopes to offer some more children the option to testify remotely. She also argues cross-examinations aren't fair for kids. She hopes Ottawa and the province look to other countries with different innovative approaches. The chair of the Winnipeg Police Board says the city wasn't consulted before the province announced 12 new officers for community policing. Councillor Marcus Chambers says what the city really needs is more money to cover policing costs. He says police funding must be sustainable.
It would be great to be consulted on, issues that impact the city of Winnipeg. They have been great partners in the past in providing additional funding. I am disappointed that I didn't learn about this sooner, but we will dig into it and find out what it represents for the city of Winnipeg.
The NDP government says it will increase funding for municipal police forces by 2%, but that won't cover the rising costs of police salaries, which are up 3.6% this year. 14 pedestrians and 2 cyclists have died this year so far in Winnipeg. It is the highest total since at least 2018. Winnipeggers like Shayna Plout are calling on the city to do more to protect people on the roads. Plout walks through the Furby and Broadway crosswalk every day to pick up her children from daycare, and she's had many close calls.
If you're asking if I feel scared, no, it takes a lot more than that to feel scared. But I just feel scared for my kids. And so what I try and do is model and teach them how to walk, how to scoot, how to pay attention, how to be present. If you can teach a 3- and a 5-year-old how to do that, you could teach people behind the wheel of a car.
This week, 3 people were rushed to hospital after being hit by vehicles less than 12 hours apart. A decision over how the province regulates moose hunting in a First Nations traditional territory now rests with a Manitoba judge. Lawyers in the case say the ruling will be precedent-setting. Manitoba Court of King's Bench Justice Brian Bowman is weighing 2 opposing arguments over a recent cut to some moose hunting licenses. Pimicikamak Cree Nation and the Manitoba Wildlife Federation both allege the province's July 11th decision was unreasonable. Pimicikamak wants the decision quashed, but the Federation wants a declaration saying it was unlawful. Lawyers say Manitoba has no case law precedent where a First Nation proceeded to trial over treaty rights through a notice of application. The province's lawyers asked Bowman to dismiss both cases, but asked Pimicikamak to be able to return on the issue through a lawsuit. Bowman has reserved his decision. For the first time ever, a Manitoban has been named the top player in Canadian football. Winnipeg Blue Bombers running back Brady Oliveira was the star of the CFL Awards last night in Vancouver. The former Oak Park Raider was named the league's top Canadian for the 2nd year in a row.
Ever since I entered this league in 2019 as a rookie with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, I had those guys in my locker room where I could watch, sit back, learn from them, see how they attack every single day, and to be great Canadian ambassadors in this league.
The 27-year-old then capped off the evening by winning CFL's Most Outstanding Player. You can hear more about the CFL Awards coming up in the next half hour right here on Information Radio. Well, you can't win them all.
Score! Adam Lowry with his third of the year. They needed that.
Did they ever need that? Adam Lowry in the second period on TSN with the Winnipeg Jets' only goal of the night. The Jets losing just their second game of the season in Tampa Bay. 4-1 the score for the Lightning. Coach Scott Arniel says his team was slow to get started, but the other guys...
They came out hard. We knew they were going to. They had 7 days off, and hadn't gone well for them. They were going to come after us, and they did, and took us a little bit to get into it.
The Jets now reset, Arniel says, for tomorrow night's game against this past season Stanley Cup champs, Paul Maurice's Florida Panthers. That's tomorrow. You can find more Manitoba news at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
And so Heather was just mentioning all those awards last night, the CFL Awards. I also just want to mention that this half hour we're going to hear from Adam Bighill, which is nice because he's out. What a drag of the Grey Cup. But he was awarded the Tom Pate Memorial Award last night, and we'll talk more about that. We'll hear from him. Right now, 6:36 a.m., it's time for the regional forecast with my friend Abby Adeyemi.
Good morning once again. We're looking at a mix of sunny skies in the south and snowy conditions up north. Currently, Winnipeg 2 degrees. We will see sunny conditions today with light winds. We warm up to a high of 8 in the city today. Brandon sitting at -2. We're seeing some clear conditions out there. That will turn sunny as we get into the day. Then you see some breezy conditions around the noon time. For Brandon, you warm up to a high of 5. Thompson is sitting at -5 and cloudy. Snow is expected today. You should be seeing about 2 to 4 centimeters with a high of -2 later in the day, and that snow is going to continue tonight, taking you to you're going to be dropping to around -4 as you get into the overnight period. Churchill -4 and cloudy. You're seeing some freezing drizzle at this time. Your high is only going to get to -1. Dauphin is sitting at 5. Cloudy conditions. You're seeing that should clear up as you get into the day, and then you see some sunny breaks. You warm up to a high of 6. Gimli 2 and clear. The Interlake region sees a lot of sunshine today, light winds, and then a high of 7. In Steinbach, we're currently sitting at 1 with clear conditions. That will turn sunny as you get into the day. Light winds will pick up, and then you warm up to a high of 8. In Steinbach, it is 1 and clear, sunny conditions also in the forecast. Light winds would come with that, high of 8 in the forecast. You do see some rain tomorrow by the noon period. And in Morris, we are at 1 and clear skies. You're seeing Pembina Valley region would see lots of sunshine today, a high of 12. Clouds will roll in as you get into the day, and then tomorrow's, the rain is going to arrive tomorrow or morning. Across board, we're looking at a mix of sunny skies in the south, sunny conditions in the north. Light winds will pick up, a pleasant temperature reaching 8 in Winnipeg today.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk is here now with a look at your morning commute for Friday. Hello.
Hello. Yeah, right now, no major issues to report that I've seen on the highways or here in the city, but I do want to look ahead to tomorrow because it is a Santa Claus parade starting at 5 p.m. tomorrow, but road closures are going to be starting as early as 11 a.m. tomorrow. So the roads closing at 11 a.m. is going to be the southbound lanes of Main Street between Portage and York. Those are going to shut down 11. And then at 2 p.m., Portage between Main and Memorial are going to close, as well as northbound Memorial between Portage and Broadway, as well as southbound between St. Mary and Broadway. So essentially, by 2 p.m., if you're not planning to go to the parade, you're going to want to avoid downtown if you usually go through there to get where you need to go. So heads up there. But if you are, enjoy the parade tomorrow. Should be quite fun. If you see anything else going on out there, give me a call on the CBC commuter line. That number 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much, Corey.
Thank you.
Well, it is time for business news now on CBC's Information Radio. Every morning at this time, we connect with Crystalie Ramlakan, and via Zoom, she's here now. Hi there.
Hi, good morning, Marcy.
So let's talk about the big news in this country, labor-wise, the Canada Post workers being on strike. A lot of people waking up now and absorbing what this is going to mean. What's your sense of all of it?
Yeah, so workers went on strike just after midnight after failing to reach an agreement with their employer. And their union says about 55,000 people are on strike. It says little progress has been made in the bargaining process. And the union says Canada Post had the opportunity to prevent this strike, but has refused to negotiate real solutions to the issues postal workers face every day. So, of course, this comes ahead of Black Friday and the beginning of the holiday season when Canadians rely on the Postal Service to send and receive gifts, packages, and cards. Now, Canada Post says its operations will shut down, affecting millions of Canadians and, of course, businesses. Mail and parcels will not be processed or delivered during this strike, and some post offices will also be closed. So, Canada Post's latest contract offer included a wage increase of 11.5% over 4 years, but the union said it wasn't enough. And also, Teamsters Canada has said its members at Purolator won't handle any packages postmarked or identified as originating from Canada Post, so mail won't be able to go that way either.
We will see how long it lasts and the impact here. I know a lot of people are going to be thinking about it. Let's go to the Canadian dollar now. It has sunk to a 4.5-year low compared to the U.S. greenback. What's behind all of it?
Yeah, that's right. So the dollar continues to weaken against the American dollar after the U.S. election. The loonie is hovering around 71 cents U.S., and many analysts say the currency could fall even further in the coming months as Donald Trump returns to the White House. So the dollar is vulnerable in a new Trump administration, especially after the president-elect announced plans for 10% tariffs regardless of trade agreements. Canada's economy is also slowing compared to the U.S. due to a combination of high consumer debt and weak business investment. Here's Doug Porter, who's the chief economist at BMO, for more.
I do think there's also this issue that we've got one of the widest gaps between Canadian interest rates and U.S. interest rates that we've seen in very many years. And while the Bank of Canada governor has sort of downplayed concerns on that front, I think it is also weighing on the currency. And I guess just one final thing I would point to, it hasn't been a big factor in the last year or so, but I don't think it's helping. We have seen oil prices generally fairly weak, so they've dropped below $70 a barrel. As I said, that's not a major driver, but it's not helpful either for the currency.
And some market analysts forecast that the loonie will fall another 2 to 3% by the year's end.
Finally, before we look at the markets and the dollar this morning, how could lost luggage be a thing of the past? Are we just not going to bring it anymore?
Well, that's one way not to lose your luggage, just not bring any. But yeah, one can only hope that it's a thing of the past. And that's because, well, there is a new tool that can help. Some major airlines, including Air Canada, will begin accepting Apple AirTag locations as part of their customer service process to find lost luggage. Apple will allow people to share item locations with third parties, and the airlines will be able to use GPS data to track down missing luggage using a passenger's secure location link. So links will be generated in the Find My app on a person's iPhone. Now, last year, CBC spoke with traveler Lacey Keown, who is from PEI, after Flair lost her luggage. Now, the airline said they couldn't find it, even though she could see where it was on her iPhone from her AirTag. So she even flew back to New York to just find the luggage herself. Now, in the end, she did get a reimbursement for her expenses, so that's good news. But yeah, here's her reaction to this new news.
Like, our technology is so advanced in 2024 that it is very surprising that it's taken this long for them to do something like this. I use AirTags all the time, yes. I have multiple. I give them to people as gifts. I think they're great.
And Apple says more airlines will be added over time.
Ooh, I like the idea of giving them to people as gifts. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Before we do look at the markets this morning, President-elect Donald Trump is tasking Tesla CEO Elon Musk, you may know, with streamlining the U.S. government. But not everything's been going smooth with his own company, actually.
Yeah, that's right. So Tesla is recalling 2,400 Cybertrucks in the U.S. because a faulty part could lead to a loss of power and increase the risk of a crash. So it could cause the vehicle to stop producing torque when the driver uses the accelerator pedal. And the part was used in trucks manufactured up to July 30th. Now, this is the 6th recall of Cybertrucks just this year. Tesla says it will replace the part, though, starting around December 9th. Now, the automaker says it's seen 5 warranty claims tied to this issue, but knows of no crashes or injuries. Now, last month, the EV maker recalled more than 27,000 Cybertrucks due to delayed rear-view camera images, which could impair driver visibility and then also increase the risk of a crash. Now, Tesla only began delivering its futuristic Cybertruck late last year, and that was after a 2-year delay due to production and battery supply challenges. So the Blade Runner-inspired truck launched to try to revitalize the company's aging lineup amid slowing growth in EV demand, but after all of this, it is under close investor scrutiny due to its significant development costs.
Corey and I, we were down south actually just last week, saw one of those trucks in person for the first time. They really are strange and angular looking, and I've also seen Blade Runner a time or two. So yeah, I can understand where this is coming from. At least we'll see what happens with it. Markets today, what do we know?
So in Europe, markets are lower as investors assess fresh economic data and the future path for interest rate cuts following hawkish comments from the U.S. Federal Reserve. Germany is down, the UK is up, France is down. In Asia, markets are mixed. Japan is up, Shanghai and Hong Kong are both down. So we were just talking about this. Oil down 25 cents to $68.45 U.S. per barrel. Gold is up $1.90 to $2,566.60 U.S. per ounce. And the dollar is up 0.07 of a cent right now, but it's still sitting at 71.2 cents U.S.
All right, Chrisley Ramlakan, thank you, and we'll talk to you again on Monday.
Okay, thanks, Marcy.
That's Business News live here on CBC's Information Radio with Chrisley Ramlakan, who joined us via Zoom. It's 13 minutes now to 7 o'clock. It is 2 degrees in Winnipeg and misty. And let's hear more from the CFL awards that were handed out in Vancouver last night. Brady Oliveira making a big splash as a Winnipeg Blue Bomber, of course, for the second year, the most outstanding Canadian. Also last night, the CFL's most outstanding player overall. But also another Bomber. And we're about to hear his acceptance speech. I'm talking about Blue Bombers linebacker Adam Bighill. He was awarded the Tom Pate Memorial Award. This award is selected by the Canadian Football League's Players Association, and the players choose someone with outstanding sportsmanship and someone who's made a significant contribution to his team, his community, in this case, our community, and the association. So here's how it sounded when he was receiving the award.
He shares his passion for football with varsity and youth athletes, participating in fundraisers and offering his expertise in board meetings. His dedication extends to Football Manitoba as a flag football coach, and his support of Manitoba Minor Football Association as a tackle coach showcases his commitment to nurturing the next generation of football players. It's with great pride that the CFLPA presents the 2024 Tom Pate Memorial Award from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, Adam Bighill.
Thank you so much. Man, it's quite the honor. I've been to the awards, for nearly every single year I've been in the CFL, and there's been so many people that I respect that have won this award. I could say so much about those individuals, and Brett being one. But I really want to thank my family who's here today that allows me to be able to do what I do, and thank my teammates that are here as well that allow me to be me and, really believe in me and who I am and what kind of value I can bring. This award, it's always about impacting people. That's one of the main components of being able to be voted for this award. Believe it or not, the other one might be tenure. I might have got a few points in tenure for this award going in my favor, but I would like to think that I did max out the points you get for making an impact in the communities. And I've made it a point since I've been in the CFL, when I spent my time here in BC, of impacting the different communities and doing tons of speaking and tons of events and giving back, because I grew up in a small town in Washington State. I didn't ever get a chance to meet a professional football player. I never knew what it would be like to be able to ask them, questions of how to be successful. So any chance I get that I can impact youth, I definitely take advantage of it, because I know how much it would have meant to me as a kid. You heard a little bit about what I do. Obviously, I was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate. It's a facial difference. So growing up, despite being the homecoming king or the prom king and the football star of the school, I still had lower confidence than anybody might expect. Growing up with a facial difference, is different. It's tough. And so when I became a professional athlete, I knew that the one thing I definitely wanted to do was be able to give back to that community, to be able to help inspire and build confidence and help people understand that they can truly achieve whatever it is they want to achieve. Because believe me, I grew up with a big chip on my shoulder. I think some of you might have heard my story already before, but I really want to be able to help inspire all youth, but especially those youth, to be able to be the best that they can be. And with that being said, my third child, Bo, was also born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate. So for me, it's very special to be able to give back. We do a lot of great work in putting on workshops and different events, building the skills and everything necessary for youth to be the best that they can absolutely be. But with that, I'm very thankful to receive this award. It's an honor to be here, and for me, I never really wanted to be put my name in the hat to win this awards, because I feel like it's something that I should be doing. I should be being in the community and making an impact. But it's always nice to be acknowledged. So thank you guys very, very much. Have a good night.
That's Last Night Live in Vancouver. That is Adam Bighill of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers picking up the Tom Pate Memorial Award for his work and contribution to community, and he certainly is a fan favorite. Too bad we won't see him play on Sunday, right? We'll hear more from Brady Oliveira, who took home 2 big awards last night as well, coming up throughout the morning. And we also are going to touch base with Gavin Axelrod later. He is from CBC Manitoba, of course, in Vancouver to cover the Grey Cup, so he'll join us a little after 8 o'clock. Right now, it's 7 minutes to 7 a.m. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team here at the show. Thanks for being with us Friday morning. Misty out there. And next, let's talk about climate, specifically the COP29 climate conference that continues this week in Baku, Azerbaijan. The big talk there is about financing for disaster, specifically disaster facing countries on the front line of climate change. So Canada is playing a role in organizing that financing. And to talk about it, Jessica Green is here, a political science professor at the University of Toronto. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I want to get right into Canada's role in the financing initiative. Can you tell us about that?
Well, Canada has a lot more to do on the financing front. We are a big emitter both now and historically in terms of our per capita emissions. And, to date, our financing has been insufficient. What we need to do, along with other developed countries, is help pay for the mess that we made. And that means ponying up money so that developing countries can both reduce their emissions and adapt to the effects of climate change. Excuse me, sorry. So earlier this week, Stephen Guilbeault announced a $1.5 billion platform for climate finance, which sounds great. We need as much money as possible. Right now, there's not a huge amount of information on it, and it seems like it's a lot of private and external funding as opposed to government funds. So, if Canada really wants to be a leader and be credible in the COP process, it needs to pony up its own money, and it needs to do that in a very transparent way.
What already has been accomplished at the conference so far? They have set a couple of targets when it comes to financing, right?
Yeah. There's different numbers being bandied about, but we need at least probably $1 trillion to $1.3 trillion per year for the developing world to both reduce their emissions and adapt to climate change. Right now, we don't have an agreement on a number, and likely we won't get one until the end of the conference next Friday, or if it goes a little longer, which it usually does, after next Friday. In terms of other decisions, there's been a couple of decisions early out of the gate on carbon markets, which are pretty technical. But right now what we see is a lot of negotiating about this climate finance, both what the number will be and which countries will be responsible for contributing and which will be recipients, because there are some countries that are sort of on the bubble, as it were.
What's the impact of the Trump re-election on the climate negotiations beyond COP29? I'm wondering what the buzz is already given last week's election in the States.
Well, I think it's no big surprise here to say that Trump's re-election will be an unmitigated disaster for climate policy, both for the U.S. and possibly for the world at large. Trump is not, he's not, doesn't believe in climate change. He will likely withdraw from the Paris Agreement, which he did during his last term. He will likely gut climate policy in the U.S. There was a big federal climate policy in 2022 called the Inflation Reduction Act. He's already started to dismantle that by saying that he's going to get rid of subsidies for consumers to buy electric vehicles, which is obviously the thing that we need to do in order to electrify transport. He's going to ratchet up, I would imagine, continue to ratchet up tariffs. He loves that word. I'm not sure he fully understands it, but ratchet up tariffs on Chinese imports. And of course, China is a huge global leader in renewable energy. So that's going to slow our energy transition. And it's going to cost the U.S. a lot of money. There's a recent report out that says it's going to cost Trump's rollbacks will cost an estimated $50 billion in exports. So it's just really a suicidal set of policies all around, both for the climate and for the economy. And hopefully other countries will redouble their efforts in light of the U.S.'s intransigency, but we'll see.
Thanks for your perspective today. Appreciate having you on.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. That's Jessica Green, political science professor at the University of Guelph. At the University of Toronto. It is coming up to 3 minutes to 7 o'clock on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. I want to mention that we have our regular monthly interview with Mayor Scott Gillingham coming up in about an hour from now, less than an hour from now. He'll be live with us in studio after 7:30. The city of Winnipeg has been studying the idea of better ways for cyclists to safely commute in this city since the 1970s. And that also extends to pedestrians and anyone out there doing active transportation. Since the 1970s, we've been studying how to make this safer. Yesterday on the show, we heard from a cyclist about having her elbow swiped by a car, and it was followed by the driver yelling at her, and a pedestrian who had a close call on Monday and faced also anger from a motorist. So there's something to talk about here in terms of the culture of safety on our roadways, but also the infrastructure. So today we're going to hear more about what the mayor has to say about prioritizing a safer way forward. And there's been calls in the news this morning for that as well. Let's go to news headlines now for stories this morning. Heather Wells joins us just ahead of 7.
Good morning. Well, some Winnipeggers are in fact calling on the city to do more to protect people on the roads. 14 pedestrians and 2 cyclists have died on the roads of Winnipeg so far this year. It is, according to Manitoba Public Insurance, the deadliest year since at least 2018. Advocates for child victims and witnesses say our justice system has a long way to go to make it fair and supportive for children. This week, charges against a Manitoba priest were stayed after a young child testified in the case. We're going to hear about that. We'll hear from an advocate in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
We also have that story coming up in full feature after 7. We have a small traffic note to pass along here. Route 90 at Lindenwood, there's a train blocking both directions. Tyler just called the commute line. It just started this issue, and backups apparently are building. So that's all according to Tyler on the traffic line. 788-3093 if you're out there commuting this morning. It's misty if you are out and about. It's 2 degrees in the city of Winnipeg. It will be sunny today with a nice high of 8 degrees. Right now, Brandon's clear, -2, Thompson's cloudy, and -5, and you're expecting snow today. Well, in addition to the mayor's interview, which is coming up, and I mentioned, as well as more information on that story that Heather had in the news, we're going to hear more about the CFL Awards last night. Brady Oliveira winning 2 awards, and the big ones, right? So the top Canadian for the second year in a row, and the CFL's most outstanding players. So we're going to hear more from him, and also specifically what he had to say to reporters about the honors after he was received the award. He spoke to some reporters. So stay tuned. We're going to hear all about that. Right now, the World Report is next. It's 1 minute to 7 a.m. Stay with us.
today on The Current.
The tariff, you make it so high, so horrible, so obnoxious that they'll come right away.
A lot of Americans voted for Donald Trump, hoping he would put more money in their pockets. But the Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz says Trump's policies will lead to higher prices and more inequality. Joseph Stiglitz coming up on The Current.
The Current with Matt Galloway. This morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland. And on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Canada Post operations are shut down across the country. 55,000 employees went on strike just after midnight and just ahead of the busy holiday season. Labour Minister Stephen McKinnon says he has appointed a special mediator to support the parties to help them reach an agreement. The CBC's Lindsay Duncombe has more.
I say contract, you say no! Contract! No!
The pickets went up as soon as the deadline passed. Workers at the postal sorting facility near Vancouver's airport left the busy night shift. Anju Parmar is the local president of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers.
This is not what we wanted, but we had no choice left.
Solidarity!
Talks between Canada Post and the union had been going on for more than a year. Wages are a big sticking point. Canada Post offered an 11.5% increase over 4 years. The union wants close to double that, 22%.
Because I guess both parties were far apart, and the demands we put on from day one, they were never resolved.
In a statement, Canada Post outlined what the strike will mean. No mail and no parcels delivered, some post offices closed. That's especially tough for businesses ahead of the holiday season. Erin Mullally sells women's clothing at Gatley Lifestyle Store in Vancouver.
We ship all of our online orders with Canada Post, and we work with a lot of local Canadian makers and designers. They send their products to us via Canada Post, so it would be delays again for the busiest season for us, holiday.
Shortly before the strike, the federal Labour minister said Ottawa was sending additional resources to the bargaining table, saying Canadians need them to reach an agreement. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Employment Minister Randy Boissonnault is facing renewed scrutiny about his Indigenous family history and how it relates to his business dealings. He's being called to testify before a parliamentary committee for a third time after the National Post reported on how Boissonnault's identity has changed over the years. For more, let's go to Janice McGregor in our Parliamentary Bureau. So, Janice, what has Boissonnault said about his Indigenous identity?
John, earlier in his political career, Boissonnault was listed as an Indigenous candidate. He's since clarified that he participates in the Liberals' Indigenous caucus only as an ally because he now doesn't claim to have Indigenous heritage. Although he had spoken previously of having a Cree great-grandmother and having been given a Cree name. His office has attempted to clarify some of this last week in a pretty long statement that actually he now says his mother is Métis. And she and his brother registered apparently this past year with the Métis Nation of Alberta. Randy Boissonnault's former business and his former business partner have been the subject of a parliamentary committee investigation for months. They founded Global Health Imports. This is a company that got government contracts during the pandemic. New evidence surfaced last week that when bidding for contracts, this firm said it was a wholly owned Indigenous and LGBTQ company. That's significant because the federal government now has a procurement policy that sets aside at least 5% of all contracts for approved Indigenous businesses.
So, Janice, what are Indigenous people saying about all this?
CBC News spoke to Michelle Good. She's a retired lawyer who's a member of the Red Pheasant Cree Nation. She said Boissonnault ought to know who his mother is, and the discrepancies in this story are very concerning, similar to what she's seen in cases of identity fraud. Jean Taye, who is a retired Métis lawyer, actually the great-grandniece of Louis Riel, she said Boissonnault shouldn't sit in Indigenous caucus, and this calls into question the Trudeau government's commitment to inclusion.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa. Thanks, Janice.
You're welcome.
The United Nations COP29 climate summit in Azerbaijan is facing serious criticism. A former UN Secretary General, a former UN climate chief, and other key experts all say the talks no longer fit their purpose, and they say the whole conference needs an overhaul. Abby Kugadasan reports.
Activists gathering at COP29 say it should be all about paying up. Sandra Guzman is the director of Climate Finance Group for Latin America and the Caribbean.
If we reduce the fossil fuel subsidies, if we tax the richest, we could be already generating sources to pay for climate change.
This year, the agenda isn't all that's under the microscope. It's also the host, Azerbaijan. A letter has been sent to the United Nations from scientists and senior climate figures who say countries against phasing out fossil fuels should not host the annual conference. Johan Rockström is one of the co-authors of that letter. He's a professor of earth science at the University of Potsdam in Germany.
Now is the time to turn page, have more accountability, more scientific updates, more finance, and more reporting, and hold countries accountable against all the national plans.
The letter comes after Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev told attendees that oil and gas was a gift from God. And just days ago,
there are a lot of joint ventures that could be established.
Further controversy after a BBC investigation found a senior Azerbaijani official using his COP role to set up meetings to make fossil fuel deals. The turmoil worsened this week when Argentina pulled out of the conference altogether, and the EU negotiators suggested they are way off finding a finance target. Abby Kwadhasan, CBC News, Berlin.
India has banned all non-essential construction in New Delhi, and it's asking residents to avoid burning coal for heating. These are part of the measures introduced this morning to combat worsening air quality in the city. Other measures include sprinkling water to keep dust down. It's also mechanized sweeping to help settle the dust. Air quality in northern India has deteriorated over the past week, with smog hiding the iconic Taj Mahal from view. Canadian researchers are part of a global effort to test a new form of cancer treatment. It's called targeted alpha therapy, and some oncologists believe it is the next frontier in attacking cancer at the cellular level. CBC Health reporter Mike Crawley has the details.
Like a sledgehammer in terms of damaging those tumors.
Targeted alpha therapy involves injecting a solution that finds cancer cells and shoots out alpha particles, so powerful that they can literally shred a cell's DNA, yet so precise that healthy tissue is left untouched.
Theoretically, it could be used for breast cancer in the future.
Dr. David Laidley is a nuclear oncologist at the London Health Sciences Centre in London, Ontario, one of nearly 50 locations around the world participating in a clinical trial of one form of alpha therapy.
We have a high expectation that the trial will be successful, and once it's been completed, we'll obviously have to see it go to Health Canada and get approved.
This trial is testing a treatment for neuroendocrine cancer, which affects cells that control the production of hormones. Other forms of targeted alpha therapy for treating pancreatic or prostate cancer are in the latter stages of testing worldwide.
Well, I think it's really an effective potential mode of treatment.
Dr. Francois Bénard is a distinguished scientist at the BC Cancer Research Centre. He is not directly involved in any of the clinical trials of targeted alpha therapy, but has seen evidence that it works.
So it's very exciting because it's getting much closer to the finish line.
Still, it could be a year or more before the first treatments are approved for use, and then provinces will have to decide if they'll cover the cost, likely to run in excess of $100,000 for a course of treatment. Mike Crawley, CBC News, London, Ontario.
And finally, the roaring lion is coming home after it was stolen and tracked down in Europe. A special ceremony in Ottawa will see the famed photograph of Winston Churchill put back on public display. Paul Hunter has more.
Well, this is the day, nearly 3 years after it was stolen, somehow torn from the wall at Ottawa's Chateau Laurier Hotel, a Canadian treasure, an original print of photographer Yusuf Karsh's famed photo of a scowling Winston Churchill snapped on Parliament Hill in 1941, stolen shortly after Christmas Day 2021, eventually recovered by Ottawa police in Italy, having been unwittingly bought at auction by a man in Genoa who had no idea what he'd landed and who, once told it was stolen, handed it over to Canadian authorities in Rome in September. Now, finally, ending its long and complicated journey back on the wall in the reading room at the Chateau. What a story. A ceremony at the hotel this morning will mark the end of its travels. When the curtain goes up on the portrait known as the Roaring Lion, it'll be behind freshly installed plexiglass and protected by heightened security broadly. That said, Much of the rest of the story remains a mystery, not least how it was taken from the hotel in the first place. Police have said little on that, but a man from Powassan, Ontario, faces multiple charges in the theft. For now, the lingering puzzles are set aside for a celebration to commemorate the now unchangeable ending. It's home. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Ottawa.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
We now have some fog in Winnipeg. It's 2 degrees currently. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Friday. I'm Marcy Marcusa with our team at Information Radio. You're listening to CBC 89.3 FM. Also 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. This hour on the program, the mayor of the city of Winnipeg is going to be joining us about sharing the road. That's part of what we'll talk about in our monthly interview. How do we actually make that a safe reality for people in Winnipeg? We'll ask the mayor after 3 pedestrians were hit by vehicles in just a span of 12 hours this week. And we had a conversation with a 4th person yesterday who had another close call on Monday. The stats have been trending upward. People are frustrated. They're writing to us. You're writing to us here at CBC. So we're going to talk to the mayor about how we move beyond this and make our city safer. I think I've talked to 4 different mayors about this over the decades. We've been studying it since the 1970s. How do we get beyond this? Stay with us. So Scott Gillingham here, 7:45. Also, I want to mention straight ahead, a priest accused of sexually assaulting a now 9-year-old girl has had charges stayed. That decision was made after the girl testified against him in court. We're going to talk to someone who works with child witnesses about the need for more support, she says, for children who appear in court. So stay tuned for that. Right now, with developing stories and news from our CBC Manitoba News Centre, Heather Wells is here live. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, you don't have mail. 55,000 Canada Post workers are now on strike. Picket lines are up this morning right across the country. We're going to take you to a Winnipeg picket line. CBC's Megan Ketchison will bring us that story live coming up at 7:30. As well, the city was caught off guard by the province announcing 12 new officers in Winnipeg for community policing. Chair of the Police Board, Councillor Marcus Chambers, is disappointed the city was not consulted. We're going to hear from Marcus Chambers coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, let's get into this weather forecast, shall we? Abby Adeyemi is here. Hi.
Let's just look at it from north down to south. We're seeing cloudy conditions with snow in the north, and sunny conditions will hit the southern part. It's going to be mild down south, and some breezy conditions will come in some areas, and then rain is also in the forecast. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 1. It's shaping to be a beautiful day with sunshine in the forecast. Light winds will come with that, warming up to a high of 8, making a way for a pleasant day. And then tonight we'll see some cloud cover roll in. In the northern part, cloudy, and snow is in the forecast with light drizzle. And down south, we're looking for more like sunny conditions, and we'll see highs close to 12 degrees. Right now, Winnipeg, we're at 1, warming up to a high of 8.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Corey Funk, what's going on in the commute?
Yeah, about 15 minutes or so ago, got a call from Tyler. May still be an issue. Let's hope not. But he said that there was a train crossing Route 90 right around Lindenwood there. It had just started about 15 minutes ago. Let's hope it's cleared by now. But as you can imagine, that was causing some pretty big backups as it kind of blocks the whole of Route 90 there. So just heads up there. If it's slow, that might be why. But I do want to look ahead tomorrow to the Santa Claus Parade, because that is always lovely, but it always does mean a lot of road closures as well. So road closures actually start at 11 a.m. tomorrow, and at 11, the southbound lanes of Maine between Portage and York are going to close. And then at 2 p.m., Portage between Maine and Memorial are going to close, and as well as northbound Memorial between Portage and Broadway, and southbound between St. Mary and Broadway. It's actually running this year starting at Portage and Maine and making its way down Portage and then turning onto Memorial.
And if you're having trouble following this on radio, I hope you're watching on YouTube, because Kevin just put the map up, actually. And you can find that, as Corey's been alluding to, online today.
There's also an article if you just want to go online and check that out before you make your way downtown at all tomorrow to see how that all works on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. And you can give us a call if you see anything else going on right now, though. 204-788-3093.
Well, as I alluded to up first, we have a following story that may upset those who've experienced sexual violence or know someone affected by it. It is about a Manitoba priest who was accused of sexually assaulting a now 9-year-old girl, and as I mentioned, has had all charges against him stayed. It happened just a day after the alleged victim testified against him in court. Now, the alleged assault happened last year at a church in Little Grand Rapids. The little girl alleges Arul Savari took his clothes off, told her he loved her, and kissed her. The Crown said the decision was made after taking a careful look at the evidence following the girl's testimony. So the defense argued that there were inconsistencies in the girl's account of what happened that day. Advocates say that changes are needed in the justice system to help support and protect children who testify and children who are involved in cases. Robin Heald is my guest right now, the executive director of Child Witness Centre. She was also a child witness, by the way, herself. Good morning.
Thanks for including me.
So what were your initial thoughts when you heard about charges being stayed? Did you immediately think about the child who testified?
I thought about the burden on them for this part of the conversation. There's a lot of victim blaming and shaming in these types of cases, and I think when a child testifies, goes through that terrible trauma that I can identify with myself, and then having the case stayed immediately after does send a message that the child hears very internally, and it's a very unfortunate timing that was chosen for the staying of the case.
I'll ask you more about your own experience as well, because people might be curious about that. But in child sexual abuse cases specifically, how difficult can it be for children to be put in these situations? And what I mean by that is testifying in a courtroom.
Mm-hmm. It's incredibly hard. Accommodations do happen. For example, sometimes there can be a screen up or an even more beneficial accommodation of having a remote testimony space where the child is able to testify in a comfortable off-site or somewhere else in the courthouse space, like we have at Child Witness Centre. Having some accommodations that soften it in a homelier atmosphere where they're not going through security or challenges like that can be incredibly helpful.
In terms of what you do, the work you do through Child Witness Centre, just because you alluded to having a space for people, for people that don't know your organization, can you tell us a little bit about your work when it comes to this?
Absolutely. So our particular child witness program is one that's most relevant to this discussion. We have a building a block from the courthouse, and in this building we welcome children and their families and caregivers to testify in our space, but also to do a lot of the prep work and the work involved with getting ready to testify and supporting the judicial process in any way that they have capacity for. So, for example, learning how the judicial process works. So, being mentored on that process, how to handle challenging questions, how to be prepared for receiving a subpoena, how to do things like create a victim impact statement, which, of course, this is new territory for these children. And we do so many things throughout the entire judicial process, maybe about 20 points in a year for maybe 3 years, because our judicial process is quite long right now, post-COVID. To help them along that journey and have someone on their side as they navigate through that journey. And it's a very heartwarming experience for us to be able to offer this, because some of us, like me, have lived experience and went through the process without the support of an advocate. So when I went through the judicial process twice as a child, I went through the process with a police detective and a Crown attorney without any victim services support at all, being from another area and, of course, many decades ago.
How old were you, and what was the nature of what you were testifying about, if I may ask?
Well, there's a strong parallel to this case in that I was in grade 5, my first time in court, and so 9 years old. So it's very much in parallel with the age frame of the case that you're speaking of.
You said earlier that the timing of this was, I think your word was unfortunate, that the child had testified in the same day that the charges were stayed. Can you elaborate on why?
I have a concern that a lot of victims feel when there's not a conviction that it's their fault, that they weren't convincing enough, they weren't strong enough, they weren't well spoken enough, they weren't, what they feel they needed to be in order for a conviction to happen. The onus of proof, the burden of proof, has to be incredibly high in these cases for a conviction, and part of what we do is prepare children for the bumps along the road and for the potential of no conviction or a stayed case. And that's very, very hard for a survivor to kind of get to that point where they're ready. If it goes either way, they're actually mentally prepared to own that they did the best that they could and did the right thing by coming forward. So I'm hoping that that's the message that this child gets as they journey through this lack of resolution.
How widespread do we need better options for children who are going to come forward and testify? You're talking about, Calgary has remote testimony rooms for witnesses. You're alluding to supports with lived experience. How much of that exists across the country?
The unfortunate part about this is the level of victim services for children is highly dependent on your postal code in Canada. We have better victim services here within this municipality, and if you go even 100 miles in, north of here or different directions, you might actually get a completely different service profile. It could be better, it could be worse. And the way it's funded by different levels of government to support different parts of our programming, whether it's the investigation stage or the court support stage, it doesn't cover all of the expenses by a long shot. With our annual budget, the allocated government funding only covers 22% of our budget. We fight for grants for another 32% from government grants, and then we have to raise the rest, which is 46% of our budget, doing fundraising and things like that. The victim services agencies that do not do any of the fundraising have a very bare bones support program without a lot of extras. For example, they might not have a facility dog. So here at Child Witness Center, we have a facility dog, Monet. She's a superstar. And for those children and their families who have an affinity for four-legged friends, it is absolutely cathartic to have a four-legged friend to journey through this with them. Our children have an opportunity to make a kerchief that they color, and Monet wears that kerchief while she serves them during their journey on their testimony day, their victim impact statement day, and those really difficult times. They have something lovely to look forward to. She also can bow to the judge, so the kids learn, ooh, she's going to bow to the judge, and so they have a little thing to look forward to on testimony day. That's not par for the course all over Canada have that level of care. It's something we work hard to curate.
Can I just interject here and ask you, has there been any pushback on the alternative methods that you work on to support children who are testifying, like in terms of having remote testimony, or you're talking about a service animal there for support, but has there been any pushback to that, those that say, no, we need the children in the courtroom?
Absolutely. So we have a lot of defense challenges to having remote testimony. Challenges, how do I present evidence to them on the spot? How do we, I want to be in the room. Unfortunately, the nature of the space constraints, we don't have enough space in any of our courtrooms or the remote testimony rooms within courthouses to have a lot of bodies in that. So having the defense and prosecutor and the victim and their advocate all in a tight space, with giving that victim enough personal space to have some physical comfort is a challenge. So it's a battle that's fought case by case. And the great news is we've got more and more every day. We've got more and more trauma-informed judges who are making some great decisions for children. And even though those challenges come through, we're happy to say that we're moving in the right direction as far as them being successfully shot down.
And just as a last quick question here, how common is it for charges in sexual abuse cases to be stayed?
Far too common. The number is growing every year, and it's alarming, absolutely alarming. There's a movement towards wanting the transparency out there. So every single stayed case is examined and shared. The reasoning behind why it was stayed is shared publicly. And the good part of that is then solutions can be found. So we need to look at the number of stayed cases, especially in child sexual abuse. Those are the ones that are the most alarming when they are stayed, and be able to resolve those problems. I also think that with call to action 39 of Truth and Reconciliation to examine the data for Indigenous victims better, we need to step up our game for Indigenous victims when they are the part of a stayed case like this one.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. I appreciate having you with us via Zoom.
You're welcome.
That is Robin Heald with us live, the Executive Director of the Child Witness Centre. For more on the story, you can go to that happened locally in Manitoba. Please go to cbc.ca/Manitoba. Time right now is 7:25. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thank you for joining us this morning. It is Friday, and out there in Winnipeg, we've got a little bit of fog being reported now at the airport. It's 2 degrees. Brandon's clear. You're sitting at -2, and Thompson's cloudy, -5. We're going to have sunshine today, a nice high of 8. And then for tomorrow, it's kind of a drag because it could be wet for the Santa parade, but that's all right. Just bring an umbrella. Santa, I'm sure I'll have some nice red rubber boots on as we continue this mild stretch of fall. Well, if you are on YouTube watching this morning, you can see I'm in my bomber blue. Let's connect with Scott Regier for morning sports. Hi there.
Hey there, Marcy.
So let's start with football. The Bombers have been doing some winning even before Sunday's game.
And the George Reed Most Outstanding Player is Brady Oliveira.
Two hosts there at the award ceremony, if you're wondering about the two voices there. And they were fetting Brady Oliveira, who won the league's Most Outstanding Player award last night. In the close to 70 years, Marcy, that the CFL's been around, Oliveira, just the 4th Canadian to receive the honor, following in the footsteps of legends Russ Jackson, Tony Gabriel, and John Cornish. Oliveira is not taking the accolades for granted.
Being a Winnipegger, running through that tunnel every single game at home, I need to pinch myself because sometimes it's still like it's a dream. Playing for my hometown, hearing all the family and friends and just yelling your name, it'll never get old. And I just want to thank, Bomber fans. Continue to cheer for us. We got one more game on Sunday, and that's the most important one.
Yeah, the Bombers heavy favorites, Marcy, to beat Toronto in this weekend's Grey Cup. And if they do, the 5'10", 220-pound human bowling ball, Brady Oliveira, is likely to be, I would argue, the biggest reason why. I know that people are looking at Toronto's run defense, which is second best in the league, as a reason that this might be a competitive game. Well, the Riders had the best run defense in the league, and we saw what Brady did to them. He ran roughshod, 120 yards, touchdown, and the like. And I think, especially considering what's happened in the last two championships, I don't know that this is going to be close on Sunday. I'm just saying. But I will touch wood.
I'm saying nothing, as you know.
Yes, you are.
No.
You are not, right?
No, I'm not. I'm not saying anything. I'm not jinxing anything this year. Listeners are getting mad at me. But listeners are writing in, too. I love this. Juliet Cooper wrote to us this morning. Scott said, I'm originally from Toronto, but now it's all go Bombers. Bring it home. And then Robert Granke writing in. He's heading to Vancouver this morning for the big dance, as he puts it. So a lot of people are wearing blue. We're going to take you to BC Live after 8 with Gavin Axelrod from our newsroom here is there. Let's talk hockey. It was not to be for the Jets last night. We knew they had to lose sometime.
Unacceptable. A second loss in 17 games. Come on. Obviously, I'm kidding. But after an historic start to the season, no, they didn't have the best game last night. 4-1 loss to Tampa Bay in Florida. There were missed passes, miscommunication, at times sloppy defense. So very uncharacteristic for this team that's looked so good to start the season. Adam Lowry, the lone goal scorer for the Jets last night, says the team is not overly concerned.
Anytime you lose in this league, you kind of want to put it behind you. There's things you want to review. There's things that you want to work on, and we're still in a great spot. We didn't love the whole 60 minutes, but parts of our game we liked, and the rest is kind of something we'll just need to improve on.
Not a lot of time to go over the game tape, if they will at all. Winnipeg finishes up its road trip tomorrow against the defending Stanley Cup champs, the Florida Panthers. And one other hockey note, Connor McDavid. He scored his 1,000th career point last night on a one-timer off of a pass from his good buddy Leon Draisaitl. Edmonton wins in overtime, and McDavid does become the 4th fastest to ever hit that incredible milestone.
And what are you watching for otherwise this weekend in sports?
Billie Jean King Cup. This is essentially the World Cup of women's tennis. Canada are defending champions, and they're waiting for the winner of today's match between Great Britain and Germany. Meanwhile, incredible to see Lindsey Vonn, the great skier, announce that she is coming back at the age of 40 and not having competed in 6 years. That said, Marcy, Vonn did give us a bit of a hint this was coming in an interview she did a few months ago with BBC.
Red Bull did this really cool thing with me where I got to ski Kitzbühel, which is the hardest men's track in the world. Then I was so happy, like to my core, it made me so happy. And then I got done with it and I'm like, okay, I'm back to not doing this anymore. And it was almost, I think, one of the worst things for me because I got a sprinkle of what I used to have and I don't have that anymore. And I'll never have that. And that's really hard.
But she might just. Winter Olympics, year and a half. That's her hope. We'll see.
Wow. I watched a documentary on her. Fascinating that she's coming back. Crazy.
Yep.
She was so injured for so long. So, all right. Thank you, Scott.
You betcha.
We'll talk on Monday, see what happens in the big game. Take care. Scott Reguera with Morning Sports on CBC. Right now, your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. It's a gorgeous Friday. It's going to be sunny, a high today of 8. That's 10 degrees warmer than seasonal for this time of year. Right now, we're at 1. Canada Post workers right across the country are off the job this morning. CBC reporter Megan Ketchison is at Winnipeg's main sorting facility near Richardson International Airport, and Megan joins us live. Megan?
Well, normally this would be a bustling area with employees coming in and trucks moving in and out, and it is quiet here this morning. This is the main Winnipeg mail processing plant out by the airport. 5,500 Canada Post workers are off the job. They walked off the job at 12:01 Eastern. Now Canada Post is saying that it has locked the workers out as well. Andrew Parmar is the head of the Vancouver chapter of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers.
This is not what we wanted, but we had no choice left. I think members were well aware from last year because these negotiations were going on over a year now. So we were prepared for the picket lines if we had to.
At the moment, Canada Post is offering 11.5% increase in wages over the next 4 years. The union wants 22%. Now, out here at the site, there are a couple of signs that are out. One says more day work, less night work, and I support postal workers. We're expecting the picket line to be set up here in Winnipeg outside of this plant around 8 o'clock this morning. But from now, no mail, no parcel delivery, and some post offices across the country will be closing. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Megan. An advocate says many areas within the justice system have to be improved to support children who are victims or witnesses of alleged crimes. It comes after all charges were stayed this week against a Manitoba priest accused of sexually assaulting a now 9-year-old girl. The alleged incidents happened in Little Grand Rapids First Nation last year. On the first day of the trial, Savari's lawyers argued the girl's court testimony was inconsistent. During cross-examination, her answers caused the judge to suggest the girl was confused by the way the questions were worded. Robin Headley at the Child Witness Centre in Ontario stresses child witnesses are different.
They come in at all different ages and stages of development, and it doesn't make them a worse witness. What it means is that a trauma-informed judge needs to step in as soon as a question is phrased in a way that is not appropriate for that child's age and stage immediately, so that that child doesn't have a stumbling response.
RCMP say the investigation is ongoing. Transcona City Councillor Russ Wyatt refuses to apologize after a report found he made offensive comments about the city's former CAO. An investigative report by the City of Edmonton's Integrity Commissioner found Wyatt breached the city's code of conduct on several points with comments about then CAO Michael Jack. Jack alleged he was publicly harassed through the publication of an interview given by Wyatt to Winnipeg media calling for Jack's firing, saying it was time to remove some of the, quote, deadwood in senior management. Councillor Wyatt says he is very disappointed by the report's findings.
It would be great to be consulted on, issues that impact the city.
I am not going to apologize. No way. I did nothing wrong. I did nothing. I basically spoke to the public about the fact that we need to have better accountability and transparency at City Hall, and that accountability is still not in effect, in my opinion.
For his part, Michael Jack has declined comment. The chair of the Winnipeg Police Board says the city was not consulted before the province announced 12 new officers for community policing. Councillor Marcus Chambers says what the city really needs is more money to cover policing costs. He says police funding has to be sustainable.
It would be great to be consulted on, issues that impact the city of Winnipeg. They have been great partners in the past in providing additional funding. I am disappointed that I didn't learn about this sooner, but we will dig into it and find out what it represents for the city of Winnipeg.
The NDP government says it will increase funding for municipal police forces by 2%, but that won't cover the rising costs of police salaries, which this year are up 3.6%. Officially outstanding.
And the George Reid Most Outstanding Player is Brady Oliveira.
Brady Oliveira named the CFL's most outstanding player in Vancouver last night. It is the very first time a Winnipeg-born player has won that award. The 27-year-old running back, a former Oak Park Raider, was also named the CFL's top Canadian. Oliveira is only the fourth player and first Manitoban ever to win both awards. And he credits his teammates, his coaches, and the fans, which he calls the best and loudest in the CFL.
Being a Winnipegger, running through that tunnel every single game at home will never get old. I need to pinch myself because sometimes it's still like it's a dream playing for my hometown, hearing all the family and friends and just yelling your name. It'll never get old.
And now it's time to look to Sunday and the Grey Cup featuring Winnipeg and Toronto. Well, getting hit by lightning.
Score! Adam Lowry with his third of the year. They needed that.
Adam Lowry in the second period on TSN last night with Winnipeg's only goal of the night. The Jets losing 4-1 to Tampa Bay. It's just Winnipeg's second loss of the season. Jets head coach Scott Arniel says the Lightning were fired up.
They're on a mission. They weren't going to let us get into our game, and that's a good lesson for us. We know that how we have to continue to play, that we know what helps us have success, and just get back to it here another night from now.
And that night is tomorrow. The Jets face last year's Stanley Cup champions, Paul Maurice's Florida Panthers. You can find more news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right, thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
We're going to hear more about Brady Oliveira as well, because after he gave his speech, he also gave a bit of an interview to reporters that were scrumming around him. And why not? He was the story of the night, so stay tuned for that. Let's get into the weather forecast now. Abby Adiemi, what do we got today?
Snowy conditions in the north and sunny skies in the south. We should see light winds and pleasant temperatures reaching about 8 to 12 degrees down south. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 1. It's shaping to be a nice day with sunshine in the forecast and beats of southerly breeze, and we warm up to a high of 8. Brandon -3 and clear, sunny conditions and the forecast high of 5. Thompson at -5 and cloudy snow is expected today. Similar conditions in Churchill at -4, freezing drizzle you're seeing, and you should get to a high of -1. In Dauphin, it's cloudy at 4 degrees. Clear skies you'd get. Sunny conditions will come. Tomorrow you should see some snow starting in the morning. Gimli, Steinbach, Morris, all seeing temps around 2 degrees. A sunny day and light winds expected in the forecast. We'll see highs of 7, 8, and 12. And if we are talking about the visit from St. Nick tomorrow in the city, talking about that Santa parade, I'll tell you to bring an umbrella. We should see a few showers roll in. And looking at the system here, it's all part of that Colorado low that will be bringing some snow to the west later. And around when that parade starts, when it gets on the way, we should be around 5 degrees tomorrow. But right now, we are at 1. It's going to be a nice day. Let's talk about today. Enjoy the sunshine, and we warm up to 8.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Well, last night they lit the City Hall Christmas tree, and, we're talking about the Santa Parade on the weekend. And the other thing that our newsroom noticed this week is that annual tradition of the 3 wise men that go up on top of Canada Life Centre. Apparently they're up there. Abby was telling us that as well. But Corey, you've got this great story about those wise men back in the day.
Yeah, because it's along Osborne there where it goes up, and I remember I was walking to U of W from Osborne, and I saw them taking it down, and apparently all they do is they take like a good old fashioned lawnmower, and they just had a string going down Osborne, and they were just like kind of dragging them along, like
A lawnmower?
Yeah, it was like a lawnmower, some kind of just like small towing vehicle that you would like see, like something like that, like I don't know, just a small vehicle, maybe a little gator or something like that. But
and they were dragging the wise men
somewhere down Osborne. I don't know to where. I assume it's to the same warehouse where like they keep like the Ark and Indiana Jones or something like that.
You sure someone wasn't trying to steal the wise men the year you saw
Well,
it?
maybe, and I don't know that, but it was just funny seeing this like giant camel just kind of slowly moseying down Osborne one year. You're just like, what's going on? And
Right?
yeah, it was wild.
All right, let's get into what's happening in the actual commute this morning.
I mean, speaking of things parading down streets, really I just want to look ahead because that's the biggest issue right now. Nothing too urgent right now, but it's the Santa Claus parade this weekend. It's tomorrow. It starts at 5, but it does mean there will be some road closures ahead of that. They're going to start as early as 11 a.m. And if you don't catch everything I'm saying now, there is a website on there is an article on our website with all those road closures. But so you know, right now, 11 a.m. southbound lanes of Maine between Portage and York are going to start shut down at 11, and then coming along at 2 p.m. Portage between Maine and Memorial are going to be closed, and then northbound Memorial between Portage and Broadway, and southbound between St. Mary and Broadway also going to be closed at 2. So it's making its way from Portage and Maine, making its way west down Portage tomorrow. So should be fun though, and just keep your wits about you. Avoid downtown if you actually want to do something other than enjoy the parade. If you see anything else going on, give me a call on the CBC commuter line 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks very much, Corey.
Thank you.
Apparently they turned on those wise men about 4 a.m. yesterday, so he's shining bright. Well, let's talk about who else is shining bright. Brady Oliveira. Grey Cup now just a couple of days away on Sunday. As you've been hearing, the Bombers already winning all kinds of things. At last night's CFL Awards, Bombers running back Brady Oliveira, let's just repeat it, becoming the 4th player in the league's history to win both the Most Outstanding Canadian and the Most Outstanding Player awards. Here is what he had to say to reporters after last night's ceremony in Vancouver.
Insane. This is nuts. Like, this is crazy, man. Everyone knows the story. Grew up a Winnipeg Blue Bomber fan, proud Winnipegger. The fact that I'm up here, like I said, with the 2 most prestigious awards in this league, representing my city, representing the Winnipeg Blue Bombers organization and all my teammates, it's insane, man. It's insane. I feel a huge responsibility in, like I said, paving the way for the younger and future generations of Canadians that are going to enter this great league. You know, I want to continue to demand excellence for myself, play at an extremely high level, playing a position that's predominantly American. You know, being a Canadian at the running back position, I want to just continue to play extremely good football in this league for a lot more years and make sure that I inspire, again, the younger generation and make a lasting impact on this game, and understand that if you're a Canadian kid and you want to play at a skill position, that you can win the Most Outstanding Player award. It doesn't always have to go to a quarterback. You know, if you are the best player in the league and you so happen to be a running back or a receiver or a safety or whatever it is, that you can do it because there's been others before you that have accomplished that feat. So I'm blessed, man, and I just want to continue to inspire the younger generation. Even having my name mentioned in the same sentence as those legends is bizarre to me, kind of. You know, I still feel like I'm so young in my career. And especially a guy like John Cornish, you know, I grew up, you know, watching him play the running back position and him just dominating. So the fact that I'm being mentioned with his name it's obviously, like I said, a little bit bizarre, but of course an incredible honor. And I do think every accomplishment that I've received, I've earned it. I've put all the work in to earn it. But again, it's the guys around me. You know, having one heck of an offensive line to run behind every single week for the last number of seasons. You know, being consistent is a big part of them. So I owe it all to my teammates, my coaches, and playing for a first-class organization. Yeah, you know, obviously when I started playing this game of football, you know, I think I was quite dominant at the game. And then I think as I, you know, went on and played football at the University of North Dakota, you know, my level of play started to increase, and, you know, that thought of playing pro football was always in my mind, but it was starting to get more real and real as my freshman season passed, my sophomore season passed, going into my junior season, and you're starting to get some scouts, you know, pop into the building and talking with you. So I knew that it was in me. I always knew it was in me, but as my career started to progress, I think it could be something really special, and I think we're starting to see it. And again, I'm fortunate and blessed to be. I think I'm in a very amazing place in my life right now, with being in the position that I'm in, with an amazing organization and great guys around me. And I just want to continue to get better. And I hope, the last number of years I'm just getting started, and I hope I continue to, like I said, reach new heights. And I do think that sky's the limit for myself.
So that's Brady Oliveira talking to reporters after last night's CFL awards were handed out in Vancouver. He was the big winner, and most outstanding Canadian as well as most outstanding player in the league this year. Also want to mention Adam Bighill, who's not going to play in the big game, but last night he was honored with his award for a lot of his community work and his spirit, and I know he's a big fan favorite as well. 7:44 a.m. is the time, and here in his bomber blue is the mayor of the city of Winnipeg, Scott Gillingham, for our monthly interview. And of course we'll turn to serious matters, but why don't we talk Bombers? What are you thinking listening to Brady there?
Oh, it's so exciting. Congratulations to Winnipegger Brady Oliveira. I mean, every Winnipegger and Manitoban who's a Bomber fan is really, really proud of Brady. So to win Most Outstanding Canadian and Most Outstanding Player is just is exciting.
It's kind of, I always find whenever we talk about Brady, it's kind of like when we talked about Andrew Harris back in the day. When they've got that high school connection, you just feel this extra sort of push of excitement when they do get honored in these ways.
Exactly. And we've got such great players, local players, with Nick Dembski, of course. Andrew Harris, now he's retired.
Yep.
And Brady and some other players as well. So, but I know that this is really exciting for all of us, that Brady won this, but all of us understand there's a big win yet to come, and it's the team win that we're looking forward to on Sunday.
Now, you're going to be at the Grey Cup, I understand, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, I am. I'm going to head out to the Grey Cup, head out to Vancouver just after the parade, the Santa Claus parade, which takes place and starts at 5 o'clock tomorrow.
What's your bet this year? Is it a jersey bet?
It is a jersey bet. So late yesterday, Mayor Chow from Toronto, her office reached out to us, and so the one who doesn't win, whose team doesn't win, will wear the other team's jersey at a council meeting.
I want to, just before we leave sports, actually, I know that your thoughts are actually also with another local player that a lot of Winnipeggers have been thinking about.
Yeah, our thoughts right now are with Chad Postumus of the Winnipeg Sea Bears. Chad is local, and he, the Sea Bears have been public about this, that unfortunately Chad suffered an aneurysm, had surgery. There's been some complications with the surgery. So all of us are thinking right now about Chad and the entire Sea Bears organization.
Let's move to some of the matters making news. Let's start actually with, I have a minute and a half of tape to play for you, so I'm glad you got your headphones on, because I want you to hear from a couple folks that were on our program yesterday. So just to set this up for listeners here, we've been doing a lot of stories about pedestrian safety. They're also in the news this morning after a challenging week, to say the least. So this week, in less than a 12-hour period, 3 pedestrians in Winnipeg were taken to hospital after being hit by vehicles. So we had incidents near Polo Park and then one in NK, Chief Peguis Trail. Unfortunately, that came as no surprise to Patty Weens. She cycles year-round, and she was on the program yesterday, but also pedestrian Melissa Moyney was. She also is walking all the time. Melissa told us about her own close call that happened Monday on Remembrance Day. She was nearly hit by a car. Have a listen, and then they actually have a call for you, Mayor Gillingham. So let's just lean into this for a sec.
I can walk everywhere, as I said. So this happens quite often. I would say at least once a day.
Once a day, what? A close call or?
Once a day, where a car will be coming towards me and then not really realize that I'm in the intersection. Actually, on my walk home on Remembrance Day, it happened twice, but one car stopped, and then the other guy just swerved around me and then yelled at me.
So, Patty, I've heard before that if you're a cyclist in this city, that it's people sort of are casual about saying, "Oh yeah, you expect to be hit." Is that right?
Correct. Drivers not giving me the right of way when there's parked cars. When there is a right turn on red and I'm at the intersection, one driver grazed my elbow because he just had to make that right turn. Even though the light was about to turn green, there's this impatience, this rush.
What's the ask overall as somebody who cycles, all the time and would really just like the city to feel safer?
I would like Scott Gillingham to put his money where his mouth is. He rides a bicycle. It's time to put some political will in making real change, leaving a legacy where the vulnerable road users are feeling safe on the streets, not just more lanes. That's not going to fix the problem. It would cost a fraction of what it would cost to widen Keniston to finish our bicycle network in the city, and it could be done quickly.
And Melissa, is it from your pedestrian point of view? What would you say to the mayor?
I would agree with Patty here. I mean, we need better infrastructure, and it's not just cyclists, it is pedestrians too.
So there's a lot for us to get into out of those sentiments, but why don't we start with sort of where we ended, Mayor Gillingham, because you can hear the frustration, and people are writing to us too. Adeline Barg wrote in this morning, said, I'm listening to this conversation. I'm baffled why pedestrians and cars ever need to be in an intersection together. Let's get the lights set so you have pedestrians or cars. So people are throwing out all kinds of ideas. What are your initial thoughts on how we get ahead of this to make real improvements?
Well, first of all, my guess is most of our listeners this morning are in their vehicles. A lot of them will be at home, but a lot will be in vehicles today. A reminder to motorists, and I'm one of them, pay attention, drive carefully, be aware of pedestrians, be aware of cyclists. And frankly, no matter what the speed limit is on the road, there's an onus on motorists in vehicles to pay attention to the road and to the people who they're sharing the road with. So that's message number one.
Are you concerned that we have a culture where people are just getting mad at each other and yelling at each other? Because you're sure hearing that a lot.
Well, I'm concerned that when I'm driving, I look over, I see people on their phone all the time.
While they're driving?
Sure. While they're driving, while they're at lights, and you can't be paying attention to others around you on the street that you're sharing the road with if you're on your phone.
You're going to make a second point. Sorry, I interjected.
No, that's not a problem at all. But the other reality is we are making significant record investments in cycling and pedestrian infrastructure. In fact, we have $80 million set aside in our budget over the next several years for pedestrian and cycling infrastructure. We made significant investments this year in getting more separated bike lanes. The more we can separate motorists, like vehicles, from bikes, the better it is as well.
You did run on this idea. I mean, that's the push from Patty there. In 2022, you promised to eliminate gaps in sidewalk and cycling networks, upgrade the roadwork priority formula to be more equitable, and design and make changes to ensure safety features for pedestrians and cyclists are being planned. That was quoted from then.
And if I may, and we're doing that. Like I won't read it off, but I have a whole list here today I can read off of the investments we've made on roads right now, where we've added separated lanes, added more sidewalks, made it safer, added a road safety team as well. So we're making those investments.
Why not slow it down, period? Why not go to 30K everywhere? Because as I said, I mean, I have talked to I looked back yesterday, Mayor Glenn Murray, Mayor Cates, Mayor Bowman, yourself. Like, we have been talking about this in Winnipeg since the 1970s about how to improve infrastructure. So if people are saying that speed is part of this conversation, the motion from Sherry Rowlands, the councillor this week, people yesterday saying, Patty's example was her e-bike can go 30. So for her, like, that's a significant thing that you would feel safer if it were slowed down. Is that a possibility? I was reading your Winnipeg Road Safety Strategic Action Plan. I know you have pilot projects, but are you considering citywide looking at slower speed limits like that?
There is a report that has analyzed that's coming back. It's not ready yet, but it is coming back to take a look at the results of the pilot projects. We've done and are doing pilot projects of 30 or 40 kilometers in different areas of the city. I was part of one when I was a city councillor in St. James. There's an area there that has been slowed down to 30 in a neighborhood. And so we're waiting on that report to come back, and then we're going to have the broader discussion ultimately as a council and as a community about whether to reduce speed limits within residential areas. But we have been trying some pilot projects here, and whatever the outcome of that is, though, I think the message has got to be the same to motorists: is we are sharing the road with cyclists and pedestrians. So no matter the speed limit, that principle remains. We have to be aware as we're driving.
Cynics say that part of why this hasn't happened in Winnipeg is because politicians, and I'm just going to say it bluntly, need the vote from motorists, and that we live in a city that has a lot of winter and we're primarily a car city still. And then that's why what keeps getting in our way of making the leap to be actually a city that has better active transportation routes and investments in infrastructure. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, again, I would say I'll let the financial record speak for itself as far as how much we have and are investing in cycling. And you know, Patty is right. I've cycled with Patty before. I'm a cyclist. I don't cycle as much as Patty does, but I cycle on a regular basis. And so I too have had incidents where, it's close calls with motorists.
But Patty wants you to say no to widening Kenaston and put money into, spending all that on bikes, right?
Well, the project, the Kenaston is a series of projects, first of all, including the largest portion of that is replacing the bridge over the Assiniboine, which must be done. There is work there that has to be done.
So that's a non-starter, taking the money from that for you. Okay.
So we have to have that discussion, and that's a future discussion as well with the federal and provincial governments getting on board with that. But there is a report coming back that is analyzing speed limits within residential areas across the city.
And that is expected. I was looking at this. I know there's also the establishment of a multi-stakeholder road safety committee. A lot of these were expected fall of this year. How close are we to having those things in place? Is that end of the year still?
Yeah, I don't have the update on that, but I can certainly look for the update on that.
How concerning is it for you that this is? People say it's a daily reality that they expect they're going to be hit.
Well, of course, it's a concern. But I would say, once again, we're putting $80 million worth of investment into improving cycling and pedestrian infrastructure, adding more bike lanes. We've just opened bike lanes just recently throughout the city, including up on Keewatin, which really has a separated lane now where there wasn't one before, really improving the AT connection within the northwest part of Winnipeg. And there's some other investments as well that we've been making and will continue to make over the next several years, including investments in St. Boniface, Stradbrook and River, and Maryland as well. So it's making a difference.
I want to touch on one other topic before our interview time runs out here, and that is something that actually our Winnipeg Free Press journalistic colleagues are reporting on this morning. So this is their report. They are talking about and quoting Councillor Marcus Chambers of the Police Board, saying that there's an eye on major expansion to photo radar, which could bring the program into more residential neighborhoods. Anytime you talk about photo radar in the city, people lean in and they want to know more. So what is your understanding about what is developing here?
Well, making changes actually to provincial legislation is something Councillor Marcus Chambers has been calling for as chair of the Police Board, and I've been supporting him on that call because the legislation was put in place back in the early 2000s, like 2001, specified the type of equipment that had to be used in photo radar. Photo radar is there to improve safety. There's a lot of critics that say, that it's just about cash grab. Yep. And I don't think we're ever going to convince people it's otherwise. But to me, photo radar has to be about improving safety. We've just been talking the last little bit here about road safety. It's about slowing people down for safer roads for everybody involved.
So you would support an expansion if the legislation could change, and if this all happens, you would fully support an expansion?
If it's for safety. I think what we need to know is we need to be working with the city needs to be working with the province and MPI to get the data to see where the infrastructure, the intersections that are not safe, and identify those places as primary candidates to try to improve safety. And if using photo radar is a way to improve safety, then I'm all for it. But again, the legislation needs to change because the infrastructure or the equipment that's used is codified in legislation. And I'm quoting the line I used is, it would be like saying that we're only allowed to watch movies on VHS. Things have changed, so we need new changes in equipment to update the technology.
How do you assess if it's for safety?
Well,
like you look at the actual stats at intersections in terms of fatalities, collisions, and such, and measure that against photo radar having an impact. Because that could take a long time. To make that effective data, you'd need a long stretch of data to look at.
You would for sure need to use the data, Marcy. But again, MPI has some of that data. And so a better relationship, a good working relationship between the city and MPI so that we can understand as a city where those locations are that are the most problematic, that are the least safe intersections. There has been projects run before, campaigns run by MPI on 4 or 5 different intersections within Winnipeg where we know those are high collision areas. To me, those are a starting point. Let's use the data to locate and determine where we're going to place photo radar if it does expand indeed, and see the results from that to make the streets safer.
Thank you for being here this morning.
Thank you. Go Bombers.
Have a good time at the Bomber game at the Grey Cup, and travel safely. That is our monthly interview with Mayor Scott Gillingham live in our studio here at CBC. The mayor and I have never matched before. It's a one-day-a-year thing, right? Everyone's showing their bias for the Bombers only. All right, let's get to what's happening in the news center. Heather Wells is here with stories.
Good morning. Well, picket lines are about to go up in the next minute or two at the mail sorting station right by Richardson International Airport. You're about to see those lines go up. Unclear yet how the impact it'll have on traffic, but we are hearing from small businesses saying this postal strike, 55,000 postal workers out across the country, will impact their business. That's coming up in our next local news at 8:30.
It is 2 minutes to 8 o'clock on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on that app and on YouTube. It's 2 degrees in Winnipeg, a little bit foggy, misty, a high today of 8, and we're going to have lots of sunshine. Stay with us. We'll go live to Vancouver and see how excited it is.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger sitting in for Tom Power. When Fat Mike, lead singer of the punk band NoFX, said this was their final tour, he really meant it. He joins me to chat about ending the band's 40-year run and why he was worried about making it through the last show.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current with Matt Galloway.
A lot of Americans voted for Donald Trump, hoping he would put more money in their pockets. But the Nobel Prize-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz says Trump's policies will lead to higher prices and more inequality. Joseph Stiglitz coming up on The Current.
This is World Report. Good morning, I'm John Northcott. Canada Post workers are now on strike.
I say union, you say power! Union! Power! Union! Power! Union!
Tens of thousands of workers walked off the job just after midnight Eastern Time after their union and the Crown Corporation could not reach a deal. The move has mail delivery across the country grinding to a halt. Megan Fitzpatrick is at a picket line in Toronto. Megan, what's happening where you are?
Well, John, there are dozens of workers now out on the picket line. They're waving their union flags. They're carrying signs that say things like, we deserve better. They have been off the job for a few hours now. The union representing thousands of postal workers saying they had no choice but to launch this strike action. And they do say this was a last resort. They accuse Canada Post of bargaining in bad faith. And one of the key issues, as we've been hearing leading up to today, is over wages. The union is asking for a 22% increase over the next 4 years, and Canada Post is offering 11%. We spoke to a representative from the union here on the picket line, and he says what Canada Post has been offering is ridiculous, that the wage increase they're offering does not help workers keep up with the expensive cost of living these days. He did make it clear, John, that these workers do not want to be legislated back to work. They do say in addition to fair wages, they're also fighting for better working conditions.
And so, Megan, what are we hearing from Canada Post?
Well, Canada Post is warning Canadians and letting Canadians know that operations have virtually shut down now across the country. Mail and parcels will not be processed or delivered while the workers are on strike. Canada Post has said they did put a fair offer on the table that offered protections for existing benefits and enhanced benefits. They say they have offered wage hikes above inflation, as well as better job security and other benefits. That's a bit of what we've been hearing from Canada Post so far. Again, for Canadians, what they need to know if they were planning on mailing out some holiday cards or some parcels today, that can't happen. Most of the post offices across the country now closed.
Megan Fitzpatrick in Toronto. Thanks, Megan.
You're welcome.
CBC News has new information about a controversial case connected to a high-profile protest against pandemic restrictions. 2 men were arrested with an arsenal of firearms at the border blockade in Coutts, Alberta. Well, now our colleagues at the Fifth Estate have obtained video evidence that sheds light on their motivations. Stephen D'Souza has the details.
When the elites win, we all lose, and we'll all be in a concentration camp then.
Tony Olenek looks relaxed, sitting in the white and gray police interview room in Alberta in February 2022. He was arrested the night before at the Coutts blockade, accused along with 3 others of conspiring to murder RCMP officers.
Probably too deep down the rabbit hole, but
Chris Carbert was also charged. The Fifth Estate obtained video of their police interviews. It shows just how deep into conspiracies the men were.
it scares me, right? Just from seeing all these elites doing what they're doing.
The men had an arsenal of weapons, ammunition, and body armor. Olenek tells officers about his doomsday scenario.
The government then will call the Insurrection Act. So then what happens is the UN comes, which is Chinese troops. And there is an imminent invasion of Chinese troops on Canadian and American soil.
But in August, a jury found Carbert and Olenek not guilty of conspiracy to kill police officers, only guilty of weapons possession and mischief. The jury didn't believe the men had a plan to attack the police. University of Alberta criminologist Temetope Oriola says the case shows that extremism needs to be taken more seriously in Canada.
This was treated as a standard series of street-level crime. Because of that, they've gotten away fairly lightly, in my opinion.
Carbert and Olenek were sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. The Crown and defense are both appealing. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, Toronto.
Conspiracy in Coots airs tonight on the Fifth Estate at 9 p.m. on CBC and CBC Gem, or you can also watch it on the Fifth Estate's YouTube channel. We're hearing from Donald Trump in his first formal speech since winning last week's U.S. presidential election. He addressed a Florida black tie event last night, attended by many of his most high-profile supporters. Trump used the moment to celebrate what he called the most consequential election in the last 129 years. He also made a surprise announcement about his latest cabinet pick.
So I won't tell you his name. Might be something like Burgum. He's from North Dakota. He's going to be announced tomorrow for a very big position, although this is a pretty big announcement right now. Actually, he's going to head the Department of Interior, and he's going to be fantastic.
Doug Burgum is governor of North Dakota. He's faced criticism in the past over oil pipelines impacting Indigenous people's land. Trump also used the occasion to promote his recent controversial pick for the role of health secretary. Steve Futterman has more.
Donald Trump's controversial nominations continue.
Today, I nominated him for, I guess, if you like health and if you like people that live a long time, it's the most important position, RFK Jr. Bobby?
Trump's latest out-of-the-box nomination, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. Kennedy has been a vocal vaccine skeptic who has promoted conspiracy theories.
There's no vaccine that is, safe and effective.
Among Kennedy's other positions, a belief that COVID targets certain groups of people. But by far the nomination receiving the most blowback is Trump's choice of Matt Gaetz to be Attorney General. Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, has been among the most vocal in attacking Gaetz.
Well, it must be the worst nomination for a cabinet position in American history.
Gaetz has been under investigation by the House for allegations that he was involved in sex trafficking and that he had a sexual relationship with a minor. Plus, he is very unpopular, even with Republicans. It would be hard to get him confirmed by the Senate. But there is a way to bypass the Senate with what's called a recess appointment. Trump has said he wants the new Republican majority in the Senate to allow this process, essentially taking away the Senate's traditional role in approving cabinet positions. Steve Futterman for CBC News, Los Angeles.
India has banned all non-essential construction in New Delhi, and it's asking residents to avoid burning coal for heating. These are part of the measures introduced this morning to combat worsening air quality in the city. Other measures include sprinkling water to keep dust down. The city has shut down primary schools yesterday. Air quality in northern India has deteriorated severely over the past week. The New Zealand Parliament was suspended today, this after a noisy protest from Maori lawmakers. Peter Hatfield has more.
It started with the lone protest of New Zealand's youngest parliamentarian, an Indigenous Maori woman named Hannah Rohiti Maipi Clark, after she was asked whether her party supported a bill to revise a colonial-era treaty. Her performance of a traditional Maori song and dance called the haka soon had other Maori politicians joining in. Within a minute, they were on the floor of the House of Representatives, taunting government politicians who are trying to push the bill through. It seeks to amend an 1840 treaty that ended years of wars and disputes between Indigenous Maori and European settlers. The government says the treaty gives unfair advantages to Maori people. Critics say it takes away Maori rights. The disruption inevitably brought this response from the Speaker.
The House is suspended until the ringing of the bells.
A suspension of Parliament. But tensions are likely to continue when the government again tries to push the bill through. Peter Hadfield for CBC News, Sydney.
And finally, last week we told you about Beyoncé and the Grammys. This week it's all about the Latin Grammys.
Los muchachos en el ring del barrio nunca se doblan. Se mantienen en su tinta con un con de cariño.
Dominican Juan Luis Guerra, the big winner last night at the awards. This song, Mambo 23, got Record of the Year, but Guerra also won the Album of the Year category, also Best Merengue Bachata Album, all of it making him a 27-time Latin Grammy winner.
Un billete de 500 y un deseo, un solo individuo, lleva traje oscuro, con un diente de oro puro, a quien llama por apodo el rey del mar.
And that is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm John Northcott. This is CBC News.
Rey del mambo. Tranqui, tranqui, no se me sofoque, solo quiero coro, hágame feliz.
Well, this is not just any Friday morning show. So we got to start it with one of the Bomber touchdown songs because we're pretty excited that the Blue and Gold are in the Grey Cup. A lot of people have followed them to Vancouver. So is CBC's Gavin Axelrod, who's going to be bringing us some of the excitement from all of the Grey Cup festivities. This morning, we're celebrating also because Adam Bighill and Brady Oliveira was also the big winner last night at the CFL Awards. We'll hear more about that and more in the news. Go Blue! This is Friday Morning's Information Radio on CBC. I'm Marcy Marcusa, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. Kind of feel like I'm at a game now. There, we channeled it for all of us that couldn't make it to Vancouver for the Grey Cup. Let's go to Heather Wells. She is with us this morning with labor news and other stories that are developing. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, across the country, 55,000 Canada Post workers are now on strike. Picket lines are going up here in Winnipeg just in the last few minutes out at Canada Post's main sorting facility, which is right by Richardson International Airport. We're going to take you there coming up at 8:30. As well, the city was caught off guard by the province announcing 12 new officers in Winnipeg for community policing. The chair of the police board says he's disappointed the city wasn't consulted, and he says what the city really needs is more money to cover policing. We'll hear from Marcus Chambers in our next local news at 8:30.
All right, thank you very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Heather Wells in our news center this morning. All right, let's get into what's happening in the forecast. Abby Adiemi's here. It's pretty mild again, Abby, this morning in Winnipeg.
It's definitely going to be a beautiful day with sunshine in the southern parts of the province, though that's not the condition for the north. We're going to be seeing some snow and breezy conditions in other parts of, from west to east, with temperatures in Winnipeg currently at 1. Sunny day ahead for Ross, light southerly breeze, and we get to a high of 8 today. Though the winds will be light shifting, like I said, it's going to be calm as the morning progresses, and then tonight we'll see some clouds roll in. Down south, general, it's going to be sunny day, light winds, and then the northern parts will see more like freezing, drizzle, and light snow. So across board, I'll say down south, more like sunshine in most of the areas, while the north will see that snow that I've been mentioning about. And then Saturday, we're going to see snow in the morning, but let's enjoy it today.
Thank you, by the way, speaking of enjoying things, for my friendship bracelets.
I'll
Look,
flash mine
match.
too. Yeah, there you go.
We're channeling our Taylor Swift vibes because we're not there. So Abby brought me some beaded bracelets. I love that. Seriously, thank you. Let's get into what's going on in the morning commute. Corey Funk is here. Hello.
Hello. You should also be wearing a sweatband on the other one to channel some Bruce Springsteen as well. The one issue I've heard of actually so far is actually about a big puddle on eastbound Portage at Sturgeon. We got a call on the commuter line. We don't know what it's from, if it's a water main break or some sewer backup, none of that, but a big puddle. So if you're just don't hydroplane. Slow down if you're around eastbound Portage at Sturgeon. That's all we know about so far. But looking ahead to tomorrow, it's the Santa Claus Parade. It starts at 5 at Portage and Main, makes its way down Portage and turns down Memorial. But what you need to know in terms of road closures is that at 11 a.m. tomorrow is when the first road closure starts. And that's going to be the southbound lanes of Main between Portage and York. Those are going to shut down at 11. And then at 2 p.m., Portage between Main and Memorial are going to close for the parade, as well as northbound Memorial between Portage and Broadway, and southbound lanes between St. Mary and Broadway are closing at 2 p.m. as well. So if you plan to go through downtown tomorrow for anything other than the parade, you probably just want to avoid that if you can. If we do have a more comprehensive look, if you forget all of this, on our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Just Google CBC Manitoba Santa Claus Parade. It'll be there for you. Give me a call if you see anything else going on. If you have an update on that puddle, give me a call, 204-788-3093.
Let's have a great day out here. Another solid day of prep. I'm ready to go, man. Let's go.
Some of the sound of the Bombers practicing at BC Place yesterday in Vancouver. Sunday will be the Blue Bombers' 5th consecutive appearance in the Grey Cup. This time we're playing the Toronto Argonauts. Winnipeg is the favorite to win the Cup, but if they don't win, they will become the first team in 68 years to lose 3 Grey Cups in a row. You might remember coming close against Montreal and Toronto before. We want to talk, though, about the Winnipeg fans and the generations and celebrations leading up to this big game. So CBC's Gavin Axelrod joins us via Zoom. Gavin's in Vancouver covering the Grey Cup for us. And I know it's early there, so thank you so much for joining us, Gavin.
I'm really excited to be here. And yeah, it's great. It's really exciting. And yeah, we're looking forward to sharing what's going on here with everybody back in Winnipeg and in Manitoba.
So what already stood out for you in terms of, going on even on the flight to Vancouver? I heard you were on board with a lot of fans already, right?
Yeah, so we got on the plane yesterday. I was going to say the crack of dawn, but it wasn't even light out when we got on the plane. But yeah, there was tons of Bombers fans, and even if people weren't wearing the most obvious Bomber gear, you could hear the chatter around the plane of this person was going for this reason. Some people had just booked their tickets. Some people had scrambled to get on the flight. Before we took off, they call it the Blue Bombers Express. And then when we landed, I think it was 7:30 in the morning here in Vancouver, and they the flight attendants had sort of said if you're here for the Grey Cup, have fun. And there was a little morning cheer with some of the energy that people had on the plane. But yeah, even when we were standing in the airport, there was fans from Calgary and from Edmonton also arriving as well. So everyone's sort of converged here in Vancouver, regardless of who your team is.
You're a sports fan. You and I have talked sports in the newsroom before. But I'm wondering, because this is covering your first Grey Cup, just put on your fan hat for a moment, and we'll ask you reporter questions in a second again. But how are you feeling about it, and what are you most excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited. It's, I guess from a reporter standpoint, it's a bit of a grind, but it's worth it. And yeah, I'm super excited to be here, and I feel pretty grateful to be here as well. Yeah, last night we took in the awards. That was a really good ceremony to watch. Even yesterday when we were walking out onto the field at BC Place for some of the media availabilities, it was crazy just to be on that field and look out in the stadium and see sort of the perspective that the players are going to see. Fan perspective, I have to shout out, we'll get into this in a bit, but they set up this zip line for the Fan Fest, and I'm dying to get out there and give it a whirl.
You're going to put in a GoPro, and then we'll put the video on CBC Manitoba. I really want to see that. I wouldn't have the guts to do it myself, but it sounds like fun. One of my favorite things when I've covered Grey Cups, especially at BC Place because it's inside, is when you're at those practices like you're mentioning, right? That awesome feeling of what the players experience is they also let in family. So you'll start to see in the practices that family members who support these players, these guys, are going to be there as well. So I can't wait to hear what they have to say. So let's talk awards. I know that's where you were last night, and a lot of cheering for a couple of Manitobans, starting with Brady Oliveira.
Yeah, I know you played the clip earlier, but it was historic last night for Brady Oliveira. He's just the fourth player ever to win most outstanding player and most outstanding Canadian in the same season. Making it even more special is the fact that he grew up watching the Bombers. He's from Winnipeg. Like, I'd asked him last night when he was talking to media what a younger Brady Oliveira would think about the fact that he won a championship with his team and now has won the CFL's top individual award. He just sort of described it. First, he said it was nuts, and then he said, it's insane. And yeah, he seemed. I appreciated just how candid he was with all of us, and the fact that this is very meaningful for him and a lot of the other players who have won these awards were people he grew up watching. And I think that's part of the beauty of the CFL is that you could have a local guy become the star of the team and the face of the franchise.
Adam Bighill was also honored last night. I wonder if you're sensing any disappointment from him because, of course, he won't be playing on Sunday because of his injury, right?
Yeah, when he came into the room last night, I think the first questions were how he was feeling. He talked about if they would let him, he's ready to go. They had asked him if he's going to play next year, and he pretty quickly said, he wants to get back on that field. Even Mike O'Shea had talked about earlier in the day, just that the players who aren't playing still have such a huge role to play in making sure the players that do get on the field are ready and they're motivated and they're staying ready. And so, Adam Bighill is probably one of the most ultimate competitors in this league, and I can imagine it's very, very hard for him to not be suiting up and getting on that field Sunday for the Grey Cup.
Well, we can't wait to follow your coverage, especially if you manage to get on that zip line. Gavin, thanks so much for being with us this morning. Have fun.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
That is live from Vancouver. CBC Manitoba's Gavin Axelrod, who's going to be covering the Grey Cup, the Bombers, Toronto Argonauts on Sunday in their rematch. So we'll see how it goes.
Been a hell of a week, but we made it. Yeah, we made it. Hear the bar shutting down, but we're staying. Yeah, we're staying. Only got so long till the morning comes, and life is too short to be wasted. So light me up, twist me something good, make it strong enough, last long enough before the night is up. Just give me something good, pour me all your love, make it strong enough. I'm never coming down. Something good, make it strong enough, last long enough before the night is up. Just give me something good, pour me all your love, make it strong enough. I'm never coming down. Make it strong enough, make it strong enough. I'm never coming down, never coming down. Make it strong enough, I'm never coming down.
So that's the Jonas Brothers. And why are we playing the Jonas Brothers? Because they are the halftime show at Sunday's Grey Cup.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes our world. Staying on top of stories around the globe. And connected close to home. It's news you can trust. Delivered when you want and where you want. On Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1. Local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
On the topics that matter, your voice should be heard.
I'm really concerned.
And I'm not really happy about that.
Radio Noon is where you can voice your take. I'm Janet Stewart. From 12:30 to 1 p.m., Radio Noon opens the phone lines on one important topic.
It just brings everyone together.
Radio Noon's call-in segment, 204-780-0893. We want to hear from you, weekdays on CBC.
Today's Radio Noon call-in conversation, the topic may come as no surprise once you hear it. Corey actually is going to be hosting, Corey Funk. So what are you guys talking about?
Well, as you know, 55,000 postal workers across the country are on strike. So we just want to know how it impacts you. I know a lot of Manitobans, especially rural Manitobans, depend a lot on the postal service. We want to know how it's going to impact you, what your worries are about what's coming up in the postal strike. So if that's, we want you to call in but in the meantime, you can give us a call on the listener line, 204-788-3797. That's 204-788-3797. But stay tuned for 12:30. That's when we're going to open up the phone lines and hear what you have to say, what your thoughts are.
And we can already tell you that we have just heard, in case you missed it in the news, that what is not expected to happen in terms of the impact on you for the strike is the picket lines are not expected to be impacting traffic. So that's something that we were told this morning, but we're going to hear more in the news at 8:30. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Let's go to something completely different. So this morning we've been talking a lot about this weekend and the Grey Cup and the Santa Parade. But one of the other things that's happening right now is how, it's kind of just getting into that mid-November time of year where you might be snuggling in. The question is, do you snuggle in with a good movie or with a bad movie? Why do we watch bad movies? It's subjective. What is good and bad. But CBC's Rebecca Zandbergen hit the streets to get your vote on movies that are so bad, they're awesome.
So I'm asking people about a movie that they know is really bad, but they love anyway.
What is it? Cocaine Shark or something like that? Crack Shark? It was like a spin-off after the Cocaine movie came out.
So you watched that one?
It was really bad. It was like 45, maybe an hour and 10-minute long movie by some indie film studio. It was pretty bad, but it was bad enough that it was good to watch.
There's been a change of plans.
Change of plans? Because of the lab explosion? Missing test animals?
So you liked it?
I liked it enough, but I wouldn't recommend people watch it, generally speaking, but yeah.
How many times did you watch it?
Just once.
Just once. Okay. You don't recommend?
No.
Okay. Amazing. Thank you. Like kind of a guilty pleasure. You know it doesn't really have any good substance, but you enjoy it and you watch it all nonetheless.
Movie, not a series.
Try a series then.
Tulsa King. It's bad, but it's good.
Now that you're back, I'm respecting adequate compensation. Tulsa. What's Tulsa? I want you to go there.
Stallone's still hanging on, doing his thing.
Yeah.
Got the hair transplants and whatever, but it's Stallone.
It's a funny mobster, gangster, drug series.
It's predictable. I'm from Spain, so in Spanish we have so many of bad old movies from the 80s, but for any reason you end up watching it. But
Name me a Spanish movie then.
The typical movies of after lunch, 3 p.m., 3:30 p.m. that you have, and no matter what, you end up watching it.
You do watch movies that you know are bad.
Of course I do.
And why do you do it?
Well, because during the COVID, we watched it in Netflix, everything that was fantastic, good, regular, bad, very bad, but you have the time. So when you have the time, you end up watching anything.
Oh, good Lord, you put me on the spot here. All the kids' movies lately.
Yeah, and which
they don't
ones
make a good movie anymore?
Really? Which one have you been watching lately that you're like, I can sit through this, but I don't love it?
Sonic the Hedgehog.
I'm Sonic, a little ball of super energy in an extremely handsome package.
Not good?
Not good.
Well, have you sat through the whole thing?
All three of them.
And you do it for the kids?
I do it for the kids. Okay. It's all about the love.
Thank you so much. Can I ask you, is there a movie like that that you know is pretty terrible, but you love it?
It's not bad though. Okay, this guy's saying RRR. It's like this Bollywood movie that recently came out, and we think it's actually really good, but I don't know if everyone would agree. It won an Oscar for the best original song.
So it won an Oscar. It can't be that bad.
No,
it's a great movie.
No, I think it's good.
It's just like
it's goofy.
It's just so funny. Like, I wouldn't say it's like bad though. It's just like over the top. It's really over the top.
I watch all the Hallmark Christmas movies. I watch pretty much anything that's on, so not really.
But even the Hallmark Christmas ones, you know those are not very good.
I love the cheesy ones.
I know it's none of my business, but you're doing Christmas all wrong. Do you remember when you were a kid and you waited for it all year? Now it's all stressed out and angry.
Maybe I overdo things a little bit, but you know what? That is my business.
They all end the same, and I love them all.
Why do you love them so much?
They're fun. They're different.
They lift your spirits.
They lift my spirits. They make me cry, and they lift my spirit.
I just thought that this guy was really good for you.
Tell me a movie you love that you know is bad.
Legally Blonde.
How often do you watch it?
When I'm sad. I don't know. I'm in law school, so like you know that everything in the movie is like it's not always correct, but it's a really fun movie. It's just a feel-good movie.
I'm gonna get the love of my life back. For my admissions essay,
Action.
I'm gonna tell all of you why I'm gonna make an amazing lawyer. I feel comfortable using legal jargon in everyday life. I object.
Her list of extracurricular activities is impressive. She was in a Ricky Martin video. Aren't we always looking for diversity? Welcome to Harvard.
Clips from Legally Blonde, the movie. So I don't know about you, but our whole team was talking to each other about while we were listening to that. Oh yeah, what about this? What about this? So our quick list we came up with was anything with Pauly Shore. Nacho Libre's Mine, total guilty pleasure. I love Jack Black. How about The Core from back in the day? I love those movies where they're very serious about something that's going to end the world. Snakes on a Plane. And yeah, it was mentioned in the tape, but let's just shout out Cocaine Bear, shall we? I'm Marcy Marcusa. Thanks for joining us this morning on CBC. Getting ready to wrap the show, but not before our last newscast. And your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:30, it is 1 degree in downtown Winnipeg. A high today of 8. It's going to become beautifully sunny. Just a bit of a south breeze today. Picket lines are up in Winnipeg as Canada postal workers are on strike right across the country. CBC reporter Megan Ketchison is at the main postal sorting facility near Richardson International, and Megan joins us live. Megan?
Yes, this is out by the airport, and we have about a dozen people now, CUPW members that are picketing. We see one say jobs, not bots, say no to automation, and they've been out here in front of the mail processing plant since about 8 o'clock this morning. Now, from when the union went on strike last night at about midnight Eastern time, there were a group of picketers that were behind this main sorting plant to prevent the trucks from leaving. And so right now it's very quiet here, nobody in the parking lot and the trucks are definitely not moving here. As you could hear, there were some people that were honking. Now 55,000 CUPW members walking the picket line this morning across the country. There are about 1,600 members here in Winnipeg. I was speaking with Eric Tupin. He is the local Prairie rep, and he says the union walking off the job is the right thing to do to get the company to do the right thing.
We feel like the employer is not taking our demands with seriousness, and so we're hoping to get the support of Manitobans and citizens to support us in our fight against Canada Post for fair and a fair contract.
Now, what they are looking for is the union is looking for a 22% wage increase over 4 years. Canada Post has offered them half of that. They're also looking for better working conditions. Right now, with the strike, there is no mail delivery. There will be no parcel delivery, and several post offices will be closed. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Megan. Now, this postal strike has small businesses on edge. Jasmine Guinette, Vice President of National Affairs at the Canadian Federation of Independent Business, says small businesses already faced work stoppages with job action at 2 different ports. Guinette says it has been a tough year.
Businesses need to see a stop to all of these challenges that they don't have any control of. We often say that small businesses are collateral damages of these situations.
Guinette hopes the Minister of Labour doesn't sit on the sidelines too long and that service returns to normal before too long. Transcona City Councillor Russ Wyatt refuses to apologize after a report found he made offensive comments about the city's former CAO. An investigative report by the City of Edmonton's Integrity Commissioner found Wyatt breached the city's code of conduct on several points with comments about then CAO Michael Jack. Jack had alleged he had been publicly harassed through the publication of an interview given by Wyatt to media, calling for Jack's firing, saying it was time to remove some of the, quote, deadwood in senior management. Councillor Wyatt says he's very disappointed by the report's findings.
I am not going to apologize. No way. I did nothing wrong. I did nothing. I basically spoke to the public about the fact that we need to have better accountability and transparency at City Hall. And that accountability is still not in effect, in my opinion.
For his part, Michael Jack has declined comment. The city was caught off guard by the province announcing 12 new officers in Winnipeg for community policing. The chair of the police board, Councillor Marcus Chambers, is disappointed the city wasn't consulted. Chambers says what the city really needs is more money to cover policing costs, and he says police funding must be sustainable.
Which does involve more money from the province to look at the sustainability of adding more officers, whether it's the Violent Retail Crime Initiative, whether it's downtown patrols.
Chambers says the city officials are trying to drill down to find out exactly what the province has promised. The NDP government says it will increase funding for municipal police forces by 2%, but Winnipeg police salaries are rising higher than that at 3.6% this year. Well, he is officially outstanding.
And the George Reid Most Outstanding Player is Brady Oliveira.
Brady Oliveira named the CFL's Most Outstanding Player in Vancouver last night, the very first time a Winnipeg-born player has won that award. The 27-year-old running back, a former Oak Park Raider, was also named the CFL's top Canadian. Oliveira is only the 4th player and first Manitoban to win both awards. And he credits his teammates, his coaches, and the fans he calls the best and loudest in the CFL.
If you're asking if I feel scared, no, it takes a lot more than that to feel scared. But it is
being a Winnipegger, running through that tunnel every single game at home will never get old. I need to pinch myself because sometimes it's still like it's a dream. Playing for my hometown, hearing all the family and friends and just yelling your name, it'll never get old.
And he's not afraid either to go into Sunday's game. The Grey Cup, Sunday, the Bombers and the Toronto Argonauts.
Well played. Yeah. I saw you hang on
wrong clip there.
On YouTube, I saw you hang your head like, oh, wrong clip.
Sorry.
Thank you, Heather Wells.
You're welcome.
Hey, that's live radio, man. No, sorry. Good luck to the Bombers on Sunday, and have a great weekend, Heather.
You too. Thank you.
Heather Wells in our news center, along with Aaron Broman and Megan Ketchison. Thanks to everybody for their work today. In addition, speaking of those who work in our unit, Corey Funk, Abby Adiyemi, Calcadan Mulugeta, Sierra Sanders, Chidi Akuma, Jim Agapito, May McKillop, Bruce Layden, Marshall Hodgins, Angelina Pelletier, Dylan Longhurst, and Carmen Ponto. Great work this week, everybody, on all of the various programs here. Shanley Vidal's the community reporter in unit, the hosts in unit, Nadia Kidwai, Faith Fundal, and the producer in unit, Wendy Parker, the YouTube producer, Kevin Nipatebo, thank you, Kev, as well as Nellie Gonzalez, the show's producer in current affairs, Leif Larson, senior producer of audio. We're short on time here, so Santa Parade, traffic issues, go to the website, look at the map, cbc.ca/Manitoba. Also expect sunshine for today and a high of 8, but if you're going tomorrow to the parade, it could rain on you, so dress accordingly. I'm Marcy Marcusa. Take care, Manitoba. Thanks for listening, and go blue. We'll talk to you on Monday.